Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so it's I can understand like students are saying yes. Okay, so I think it's a delight to witness the full house, and I think it's again a vibrant and a youthful audience today. Welcome, everyone. So the main objective of our session is to deep dive the OSM activity and to understand more about the technical aspects of the OSM. Um, and we are going to be live also. I guess we are now. So it's also live streaming. So maybe you can also give this information to your other students who wish to attend this session virtually even. So that's also possible now. Okay, so as I mentioned that the main objective of our session is to deeply delve into OSM and the different technologies around the OSM activities. So we are grateful to TomTom for their generous support and the motivation to involve diverse communities in mapping activities. We all know that OSM is a community-based activity and it is by the community for the community. And that's the reason we have a privilege of hosting our esteemed OSM members today and who actively contribute to OSM communities and engage in various OSM activities. Through this knowledge sharing session, our primary aim is to inspire and encourage you all, especially the students, and so that you all can explore different activities around OSM and enhance their mapping skills also. We believe that by understanding in depth OSM, you all can effectively improve the mapping and make a positive impact on the community as well. There is an opportunity to use the learnings, whatever you are going to learn today at the end. So stay tuned about that as well, because we are going to talk about some innovative activities. So there you can also support and you can act. So that's something also could be something to talk about in the end. Welcome you all to again to the learning session. I know I Square IT is already engaged in the OSM activities and they are already contributing with the help of their students, even though the teachers are also engaging as of now on the different OSM activities around this topic. On the other hand, we also have Catalyst team today. The group is an award-winning NGO that stands for the economic empowerment of women. And I'm so happy to see the talent and the enthusiasm of the girls to learn and to grow further. So I think we can start with that. But I think before that, I just want to give you a small introduction of mine as well. So I'm Seema Nayyar. And as a profession, I am a program director here in TomTom. With me, there is a project management team who is talking about or who is delivering all the different projects related to mapping. But on the other hand, if I talk about this is again the exploration which I'm doing as of now is to learn more about the OSM communities and again to check like how we can learn and explore OSM community. And I'm super excited to spend my complete day with all of you. So that's something definitely we'll see like how this will earn and at the end. I think I'll brief the agenda also. We have 4 presenters today. So Devdatta, yeah, the pictures are behind me. So you can see like we have 4 presenters today. So Devdatta is a technical manager specializing in GIS with over 15 years of experience. He's a well-known figure in the geospatial community. He will talk about the expected features and services for the mapping application and how does the ecosystem cover all required features and what are the different improvements required in OSM to improve the overall user experience. So let's hear from Devdatta about that. And I'm sure this topic could be an interesting for the students, especially because again, since like you all are from GIS and engineering background, so it means like this will be a good lead for all of you to spend more time to maybe to come out of the box, maybe with some good solutions as well. So let's hear Dev on that topic. Our second speaker is again a well-known supporter in the OSM community, Nikhil VJ. He's a programmer, web designer, and a technologist. He's an open source volunteer and also worked on GTFS, that's the Global Public Transport Data Standard. Today, he will talk about the leaflet map on the web pages, vector tiles, and how we can pull the data from the OpenStreetMap. and would also cover the custom region extraction of OSM data. So these are the two sessions first we will cover. And then after that, there will be a 15-minute break. And again, like to have a kind of a small break in between. And then it will be a Chinmay with us. Chinmay will talk about he's also passionate about open data, visual map design and using data for good of the community. He would cover the OSM ecosystem, core data and popular libraries, and would also talk about the different organization work with OSM and their cyclical impact. Okay, so that's also something and important for all of you to learn more about this topic. And we have Kiran with us. She's a TomTomer, in fact, and she's a young explorer and an earth science enthusiast. She will talk about the hot OSM extending support. I'm sure this will be a kind of a full learning session for all of you. It's maybe, yeah, it's till 5 o'clock, but I can understand like learnings are important for all of you also. So in between the break, whenever you will have, you can definitely talk to our presenters directly. You can learn more topics. If you have any questions, you can directly reach out to them as well. Okay. And just to talk about the interaction, I think we really want this session to be interactive. So anytime, any question, whenever you have, you can raise your hand, you can reach out to us, and definitely it could be an exciting prizes also. We have some goodies for you also, but again, it is based on question answers. Okay. And then I think, yeah, so we can start our session round. We have, maybe we can start with Dev. Yeah, welcome, Dev. Okay, so maybe special attention to the live audience, since like they are also getting a chance to check this maybe live event, what we are doing as of now. So if there is any question from the live audience, they can reach out to me on the LinkedIn. They can post a question to me, and then maybe we'll find out the solutions and answer with the help of our presenters today. Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Yes. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about OSM, but I'm going to come at it from a very different perspective, because normally people just talk about OSM without setting the context. And one thing which we often realize is when we talk about OSM, people often compare it to other mapping applications which they use. So let's begin with that perspective of what is a mapping application. And that will give us insight into what OSM is, what OSM can do, what it cannot do. And with that, we will really be able to understand the power of OSM. So we are just going to look at mapping applications in the beginning. We are going to talk about what are the different services and features that are expected by any random user when they open a mapping application. What are the things and how are they going to interact with that application? Then we'll talk a little bit about what is the role of OSM in all of this. What role can OSM play, what it cannot do. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about if you want to improve any application which uses OSM, how can you do that, right? So as such, it's not going to be very technical. It's going to be very simple, but sometimes the most simple things are the ones which hold the key to everything that we do. So to give you a background, I'll start with who I am. So I have been working in the GIS or mapping industry from around 2008 onwards. I have worked on your traditional GIS applications, and slowly then I began moving to web applications. And I have been a user of OSM for about 10 plus years. Then I realized that OSM has, most of us come to OSM from a place of let me get some data. But then after a few years of doing that, you realize that the data is not good enough. So then you need to improve the data. So after being a basic user of OSM, I began to actually edit OSM. And that's when I started really scratching the itch which I had that, okay, the road in front of my house is not correct, or this particular route which I take every day to office is not correct. Let me improve that. And over the last couple of years, I've been implementing OSM-based applications in my organization, and we've had great success doing that and basically replacing Google Maps throughout the organization. So we can talk about that a little bit offline if you want to. I'm just going to assume a few things about you. Looking at you, I think most of you are students. Is it fair to say most of you are engineering students, right? But I'm sure all of you are users of some or the other GIS map, right? Some mapping application, and in most cases, it would be Google Maps, right? But we need to think a little bit more beyond that. What is it that we do? Because, for example, if you look at my phone, I don't just have Google Maps. I have these other mapping apps as well. I don't know if you can recognize any of them. Which one is Google Maps here? This one is Google Maps. Any idea which this one is? That is an map called Here We Go. So it's an application by a company called Here Maps, which is also a large mapping provider. They were owned by Nokia at one time. Now they are owned by a few of the automobile companies. How many of you have used, sorry. Okay. How many of you have seen this particular application? It's a Indian-built application called Mapples by MapMyIndia, which has become quite featureful and user-friendly in the last few years. How many of you have seen this application? The map is from OSM. If you can tell me which application it is, that you'll have a round of applause for that. But anyway, the point is that all of us use some mapping application or the other. What is it that we want from it? Because if we understand that, then we'll be able to build a better mapping application, right? So how do we go about on this journey? Well, as if you are a product manager or if you were in the field of user experience, you would start with something called a user persona. Now, this is a technical term. All it means is you imagine a hypothetical user of your application. You imagine what he or she would be doing. You would imagine or you would sort of record all the assumptions that you have about this user. You would then do a little bit of thinking to figure out what are the problems he or she has. And then finally, how your application will solve those problems. Very often when we start building application, we just start solving a problem which we have, but not everybody is like us, right? Somebody might not be as technical as I am, or maybe I don't know something about a particular thing, but other people know a lot about it. For example, I am bad at Instagram, but I'm sure many of you are much better than me at using Instagram, right? Why? So if I build something on Instagram for myself, it will not be very popular. I need to think about my users. What are they doing? What are their pain points and so on? So let me just create or imagine a hypothetical user of my mapping application. So let's imagine that this user is a 30-year-old woman who is not very technical. She is in marketing and her technical capabilities are limited. But what are the behaviors and what can I say, needs of this user? That is the most important part of it. So if we think about this, how would this user interact with our application? She wants to sort of go from one place to the other quickly. That's what most of us use our map for, right? So for that, what do you need to do? You need to give routing. You need to route from one place to the other. Additionally, you need to update that information in real time. Because if there's some traffic jam, I want to avoid that road. Or if some road has been closed due to construction, I want to avoid that road. Or if some new road has opened up, which I have never used before, I want to use that road. So you need to have real-time information in the application. Then you want some kind of personalization. Like for example, every day I go to my office. So why should I need to put my office location every day? Maybe there should be a button which I just click and it starts navigation towards my office. In some cases, you will want accessibility or things like, can I drive my car here? Like in Pune, there are many roads where you can only drive two-wheelers, right? When I was starting in Pune, I used to drive a two-wheeler everywhere. I knew all the roads. But when I started driving my car, suddenly I realized I didn't know those roads where I could drive my car, because there are many places where you have to sort of go through a small gate or something. So you need those kind of accessibility information as well. In her case, maybe she wants roads which are well lit. You don't want to send her through roads which are dark or where there are not enough people, right? So this is another feature which you'll have to develop. Then you could have things like safety, which I mentioned. There can be many more. And how is this person going to use my application? Mostly she will be searching for a new location to go to, or finding one of the locations which she has already gone to and navigating there, right? So all of this sort of gives me an idea of what my application should do. If we did not begin with this kind of user persona, we would be limited to, or we would be limited to only solving the problems which I am having. I would not be solving other people's problems. And that's what we need on a good application, right? So what are some of the pain points which this person might have? She might be concerned about accuracy, that if you navigate to a shop or a restaurant, that restaurant should be at that location, or that restaurant should not have been closed down, right? Additionally, maybe she's concerned about her battery life and the amount of network usage that happens on the app. She wants the app to be fast, right? So these are some additional what do you say? These are some other requirements of the app which we often don't think about, right? So this will give us an idea of what an application should do. Very often when we open Google Maps, what we do is we just think of it as one monolithic structure which gives us everything that we do, right? But since we are now looking at it from the other side, let's break down the requirements into small individual components that will help us realize what is it, or what is the benefit of a mapping application and what is possible for us to do. So first of all, most of us are used to interactive maps. I met my nephew last month. He's just 1 year old, but if you give him even a magazine, he will try to zoom in using his fingers like this, right? If you put him in front of an iPad, he can navigate it much better than anybody else can. Similarly, if you put a map in front of people, people will want to zoom in, go here, zoom out. They don't want a static image. They want to be able to pan from one place to the other, right? So it has to be interactive. It cannot be static. Maybe in some cases, as you drive along and day becomes night, you want the map to turn dark, so it's readable in the night time as well, right? So these are some of the interactive features of the map. In in addition to that, the most important thing is it has to be visual, right? We are used to a visual map where I see all the roads, all the different POIs in a certain way. So you'll have to spend some time building those kind of things. What I mean by that is, should a road be yellow or red? Some thought has to be given to that. Obviously, other people have given some thought to it and created a map according to their thought process. But it's possible for you to have a different thought process and create a map differently. Yeah, so this is the visual interactive component which everybody looks at the moment they open a map. But what do they do after that? Most of them use it for routing, to go from one place to the other, right? When you do that, you not only want the route, you want the route to be updated as and when you go along. I don't know how many of you have used a paper map for going from one place to the other. If you're born after 2000, probably not. But there used to be a time when we had to carry these paper maps while going on a long journey to figure out where you were, how to reach there. So you would get something like this. One big problem of a paper map like this was you could see where things are, but you could not find where you are in that location. And to solve that problem, all of our phones today have a GPS. I remember the time around 2008-9 when GPS started coming in the phone. Before that, they were not smartphones. Even the dumb phones did not give you a location. Some of them had simple mapping applications, but you could not figure out where you were. Suddenly, the availability of GPS in all these small devices on our phone have opened up this wonderful world of mapping. Nowadays, when you talk about routing, people normally, without thinking, call it GPS. GPS ne mujhe wahan bheja. But it's not GPS. GPS just gives you the location. The routing or the directions happen based on the data which is there in the map, right? So it's important to sort of understand that these are two different things, but they play well with each other. And both of them are required to give a good user experience. Additionally, you could have more features such as I mentioned before, routing for two-wheelers. Like in Pune, many roads, You can go via two-wheelers, which you can't go via four-wheelers. Or in certain cases in Europe, a lot of people use cycles. So you want roads which are safe for cyclists and so on. Or in many cases, all of us order things from Flipkart and Amazon, which come via trucks. So those trucks should also be able to reach you. There are certain roads which trucks cannot take, or they can only take those roads during a certain time. So if you're trying to target that kind of audience, if that is your user persona, you should be able to route and give navigational directions to that kind of user. Then many of us use something called location search. We don't necessarily call it location search, but we are searching for places. Maybe we search for, okay, where is this restaurant? Or where is this particular office? Like today, when I wanted to come here, I just put in the name of TomTom, and it sort of showed me as a marker on the map, and I clicked on navigate, right? So that is actually search. But very often we can use it for different things. I want to say, find out barbers near me. Or maybe I want to find things like an electric hardware shop near me. What is that? That is a place search. So to do that, you need to have a lot of places of interest or POIs in your data to be able to search and give you those results. Additionally, you need a lot of metadata about those things. You need to know, okay, not only the name. So think about a restaurant. You want to know not only the name, but also the cuisine it offers. You possibly also want to know how expensive or cheap it is. You also want to know what is the rating of that place. You want to know how busy or would it be possible for you to get a seat at that restaurant, right? So all of this is additional data about any POI which we would like to have. Very often, that is sort of the strength of Google Maps, that people go to Google Maps directly because it is rich in all of these data points, but other sources might not be, right? So we'll come to that in the later part of the presentation. But at the end of the day, this is the main things that we have to deal with. One is the visual map. Second is the routing. Third is the place search. But additionally, there are more things if you actually look a little bit deeper. First of all, very often we are used to this always connected network that we use, that no matter where I have my phone which can tell me where to go and how to go. But that's not really true. If you go a little bit in the rural areas, even today, there are places like I went to Tamani Ghat 2 months back. There was no network there. So I would be lost because nowadays I cannot even read a paper map. I don't have a paper map. I have a phone which does not work, right? So you need to have offline data access as one of the things in your app. What if you are targeting people who are doing, say, trekking? They don't have network in the middle of the forest. So what do you do then? So your mapping application needs to support offline data access. There used to be a time when people who used to go out for trekking or things like that had to carry a compass like this and a topo sheet. Now, again, I'm not going to ask how many of you have seen a topo sheet because that is also a lost art. But when I did my mountaineering course, they actually spent 2 days teaching us how to use a topo sheet and a compass to find out where you are. Now, that is around 15, 20 years back. Things have changed. Now we have a phone in our pockets, which tells us where we are. But for all of that to work, we require offline access of data. Then one of the things which most of us depend on, but don't call it by any other specific name, is real-time data. Things like traffic. What is the congestion of the road which I'm going to take? Like every day I go from home to office, I still open up Google Maps. Why? Because I require that traffic. I need to know out of the 3-4 possible routes, which one I should take, right? This is something which is very important, and this is one of the main drivers to Google Maps. But we need to figure out what do we do with this when we are dealing with our own app which we build, right? So this is another component which is often overlooked, but is one of the most useful things that is there. Finally, a lot of people use Street View to actually figure out things. Like for example, Street View in India has come recently, but even now when I go to a new place, I want to find out a new small shop. Google Maps will tell me, but I see a top-down view in that satellite view, right? I don't actually see what's on the ground. So we would use things like Street View to figure out where we are. Or in certain cases, we are in the OSM world, you would use something like Mapillary to figure out what is there, what are the different things, how does that place look directly. I know many people during the COVID lockdowns when they were bored at home, were just spending time looking at Street View, figuring out just traveling virtually. So it helped keep a lot of people sane during that time. Additionally, very often you don't realize this, but you're also using 3D data in the background. I'll give you an example. For example, for any electric vehicle, when it gives the distance to when your battery will go down, not only is the distance important, but also the slope. Like for example, if you drive an electric vehicle, a scooter, a four-wheeler, uphill, it consumes more battery. And if you, after that, you come downhill, because of regenerative braking, the battery charges up. So the 3D information is useful when you're doing these kind of things. If you drive a Tesla vehicle, then automatically by default uses that in the background. Google Maps has started opening that up recently, but that option is very much in your face if you select two-wheeler or bicycle routing. So all of these things are important to us, but one thing which many of us use, like if you are in Mumbai, would be you depend on public transport. So you want to figure out, suppose I want to go from one place to the other. How many buses am I going to change? If I reach there, will the next bus be available? Or the same thing with say a train. So if you were from Mumbai, you would be very familiar with the M indicator app. All right. If you are in Singapore, the thing is that almost everything gives you information real time. It tells you that a bus is going to come in 2 minutes. That means it comes in 2 minutes. So you can actually plan your journey to the minute every day if you use a good mapping application. But if I send somebody to OSM today, I send them to the OSM website. This is the thing which they see, right? They see a small search bar. They see a button for routing. But does this actually satisfy all the requirements that we have, right? This is one of the biggest problems that I have when I'm trying to promote OSM. People open up Google Maps on one side, open up OSM on the other, and say, "Arey, isme kya? Isme to kuch nahi hai," right? And the problem happens because our expectations are wrong. We were expecting OSM to be a mapping application just like Google Maps was. But is that what OSM is? Right now, this is coming to the main point of what exactly is OSM or OpenStreetMap. And I know its name says map at the end, but it's not a mapping application. It is actually a database. That's all that OSM actually is. It is a crowdsourced database where anybody can come in and enter their data. They can create roads, they can add POIs, they can set additional attributes of any of those things which are there. There's a large community which keeps on updating this. So the strength of OSM is that you have access to the data. All of us, we talked so many things, good things about Google so far, but do you have access to the data? Can I download all roads in a given city? Can I download all, what is the congestion currently from Google Maps? No, you can't. Can I download all POIs from Google Maps? No, you cannot. At the end of the day, for Google Maps, you are just a consumer. You cannot build anything out of it on top of what you want to. They have given some APIs which you can use, but beyond that, they have put a limitation on what you can do, what you cannot do, right? So if we actually look at it from this point of view, OSM, unlike Google Maps, is not a map. Yes, on the website, there is a map in the front, but that is not what OSM is. It's not an app which I download on my phone. Like people often tell me, "Are Google Maps hai mere phone mein? Where is the OSM app?" Right? Similarly, it's not a routing engine. People often sort of think about everything for routing. So again, OSM is a database. It's not a routing engine. So if we have this clarity, if we have this understanding of what OSM is, then we can truly unlock the powers of OSM. Because as I mentioned, OSM allows you to download data. But what do I do after I download data? What if I want to build an application on top of OSM? That would be the next question you would have as students and as engineers, right? So to answer that question, we have to look at all those features that we want to implement. So let's talk about the three basic features which are there. One is the visual map tiles. Second is the routing. Third is the place search. Correct? I understand that all of this is limited by the data that is available. So unless I improve the data, the output of these services will not be good. But we'll come to that problem a little bit later. First, we'll talk about how you can actually build an application based on these things. So most importantly, I want to build tiles, or I want to have a visual map. So what we saw on the OSM website, that was tiles built by the OSM organization itself. But because they're giving you access to data, you're not limited to that. Maybe you don't like, a lot of people complain about the tiles not looking good. It does not look modern. Well, nobody is holding you hostage. You can build your own tiles. And I think Nikhil is going to cover that a little bit more, but I'll just cover what tiles are and he'll cover it in detail, hopefully. So when you look at a map, which you see, right, it's easier if I cache that data in some way. So instead of creating a map for the entire world, what I do is I build it up into these small squares. And my front end library calls those squares one after the other and places them at the right location. And to the end user, it looks like a complete map. That's what tiles are. We can go into detail if you want to later. And there are different types of tiles. There is something called raster tiles, like images which are there, which as you saw on the OSM website, where it has a certain style and you can't change it. But what if you actually want to change the style of those tiles? Why not get the raw data and set the style according to your liking? So that concept is called vector tiles. I know it's a lot of information, but you should just know these words. So if you want to search for something, you know what keywords to search for. The question is, if I wanted to build my own tiles from OSM, what do I do? So these are two applications which you can use. One is called TileMaker. The another is called Planet Tiler. Because this whole ecosystem is sort of open source, there are a lot of competing projects. People try to do it one way, and then somebody else has a different idea. They try to do it in a different way. So for a long time, TileMaker was the #1 way of creating tiles. Then somebody else had an idea that this is taking too long. To create tiles of the entire world, it takes me a week or so. That's not good enough. Let me think of a better way of doing it. So then he came up with some new algorithm and he built this new application called Planet Tiler, which can build tiles for the entire world in maybe a couple of hours, right? So of course it has pros and cons, technology is different and so on, but it's a constantly evolving field. New development is happening. You can look into both of these names and see how you can actually use them. And if you want to talk more about it in detail, I'll be happy to talk to you. Then coming to the second major requirement, which most of us have, which is routing, which is basically I have downloaded the data from OSM. Again, I think Nikhil is going to present a little bit about that. No? Okay, so there are ways of downloading data from OSM, as in that's the main way which they suggest that you actually get data from OSM and then use it in your own application. So a lot of people came up with different applications for generating routes from one source to destination. So one of the oldest one was OSRM, which stands for Open Source Routing Machine. Then a few people came up with a new idea of doing it in Java. So they called it Graph Hopper because they built a graph and then do some additional things on it. And recently, around 3-4 years back, another company called MapZen was working on this problem, and they decided to build another routing engine called Valhalla, which is also quite interesting. What does all of this allow us to do? Well, I use the downloaded data from OSM. I can download it either for the entire world or for my country, or sometimes even like at a city level. And then when I give it to this routing engine, I can sort of use it for different kinds of operations. I can use it for giving me the route from one source to one destination, which is the simplest example. It can give me multiple routes based on the type of vehicle which I'm driving. Is it a four-wheeler? Is it a two-wheeler? Is it a cycle? Is it a truck? And so on. It can give me based, do I want the fastest route or the shortest route? Right? Because there's a difference. Then I can also, why only between one source and one destination? Suppose I had a business where I'm doing, say, deliveries, right? So then I want to calculate the driving route between multiple sources and multiple destinations. So n by n. So that is called a distance matrix. I could also generate something called isochrones. That is what is the area that I can cover in 10 minutes from my location. A typical example would be a restaurant or something like Domino's, which says, I'll give you delivery in 15 minutes. How do they do that is they figure out what is the service area for each of their stores. And that kind of calculation is called isochrones or isolines. There's another thing which we often have to do. Suppose we get a GPS file of certain thing, maybe a trucks on I'm a fleet operator and I have multiple trucks, or I am somebody like Ola or Uber and I have multiple cars, and I want to figure out where each of my car currently is, or I want to figure out the actual route which the car took. So then what would I have? I would basically have GPS pings of that device, right? But I need to sort of figure out which road that vehicle took. So that operation of matching the GPS pings to the road network is called map matching. And then you would also have something which is called the TSP, or the traveling salesman problem, where if I have to, it's an old problem, mathematical problem, which came in the 17th century, where a salesman has to go to, say, 10 places or 20 places. In what order should he visit that to have the shortest route, right? This is a problem which happens even today. What about the guy who's delivering your Amazon parcels? He just doesn't have your parcel. He will have 10, 20 different parcels, right? So he has to take the route which is the shortest route for him, right? So these are problems which you can solve with these kind of routing engines. Then finally, the most important part is where you want to search for places, where you want to search for places of interest. This is a hard problem to solve because you need to figure out what exactly the user wants when he or she enters 2 or 3 characters. Like suppose when I want to go to the airport, I just put AIR and airport pops up, right? So it's a difficult problem to solve. It's not very easy to solve. Secondly, the difficult problem is that you need to have enough data. Now, this is where one of the sort of major drawbacks of OSM is that it doesn't have enough places of interest. But still, there are different applications which you can use with OSM data to do this kind of, place search. So 2 major ones are Peleus. That's a new one recently developed around in 2017-18 by the same company called Mapzen. And then there's an older project called Nomatin, which has been there for, I think, around 10, 12 years now, which does the same thing. You enter some text, it will try to auto-complete what you were searching for and give you a list of locations. Right? All of this comes down, if you see, to the data which you get from OSM. So now comes the most important question, that what do I need to do to improve these services? Because if you go and start using these projects in your, components in your projects, you will soon realize that the results which you get are not good enough. You will say that the route which it gives me is correct, but Google is telling me 25 minutes and you are telling me 15 minutes, right? So these kind of problems are often there because the data is not good enough in OSM. It is good enough up to a certain level, but it can always be improved. So how are some ways in which you can improve? So I'll talk quickly about 2 of them, because this is an endless topic and we can go into like as much detail as we want at the end of the day. First is that we need to, most of us just edit OSM because we want it to look nice in a certain place. So we are editing for the visual part of it, but we are not actually editing for the other 2 use cases, which is routing and place search. So one of the ways in which you can actually improve the road network is that you need to edit not only the road geometry, but also give it certain attributes. Right? This is another topic which we can go into detail and talk about for hours together. But as a starting point, I'll recommend that Mapbox has certain tutorials on how you can edit things, how things should be edited. Like if you connect 2 roads, how should they be connected? Should you give any turn restrictions? That okay, left turn is allowed, right turn is not allowed? Or how do you add speed information? Or how do you add quality of the road? Or how do you add surface material of the road and so on? So there are a lot of these kind of tutorials. In fact, what I would say is OSM in India at least is 80–90% there on the road geometry part of it when it comes to good quality data. But if you are dealing with the attribute information, the type of road and so on, we might be there maybe 40–45% of the level which we need to actually have good output from the routing engines. So therefore, that is something which many organizations are spending time and effort doing. In fact, my organization is doing it. I know several different organizations are doing it as well. And that is where the community needs help from more people on actually editing these things. It's very easy to just add a new road in the rural area, but the road in front of your house, can you add the speed limit? Can you add where left turn is allowed, left turn is not allowed? Can you add where traffic signals are there? That will definitely improve the performance of your routing engine. Right? The second part which is there is when we are, because the POIs are rather limited in OSM, we need to actually actively add POIs to the OSM database or the OpenStreetMap project. And many of us just put the type of POI and maybe the name. But as I mentioned, all of these other attributes are something which is important for most people. In addition to that, you want to actually search with the address, right? So you need to put in addresses of the POIs that you edit. That will improve the quality of data in OSM. You can add additional metadata like where, what is the hours in which it is open? Is there any website? Uh, are there any specific types of, say, cuisines in a given restaurant? So all of this will improve the quality of your output, because if you look at what our user wanted, they wanted all of this metadata, right? For the user to get that metadata, somebody has to enter this information in OSM. And that's where a lot of effort needs to be put in. Some people are working on that. But additionally, since it's a crowd sourced database, we basically need the entire community to add these pieces of information as well. Another last sort of thing, I don't want to step on somebody else's tree, is going to cover this in a later session today. I think the last session is Hot OSM, which is a community-driven project where people sort of enter information for disaster relief efforts. So right now, as you must be knowing, there are a lot of floods happening all around the world, not just in India. So OSM currently has a project, Hot OSM has a project for giving information about locations and places in Assam. So that can be used by the disaster relief agencies to actually go to the local villages and so on, right? So I'm sure we are going to cover that a little bit in the end. But overall, I just wanted to give you a picture of what OSM is, what it is not, and where we should spend efforts editing the data so that it improves our end use case of building these mapping applications, right? So now I think I'm before time. If we have any questions, we can discuss that. Any questions? Yes. Okay. So, okay, imagine this is a map, kind of map that we see, right? Now, as I mentioned, maps are interactive. User are going to zoom and pan. I hope that idea is clear. So in a traditional sort of, in an old way, if I zoom and pan, now I move this map to one side. Data on this side has to be loaded, correct? The simplest way of doing it is every time I zoom and pan, I call for a new map from my mapping service. I get that image, I put it on my web page. That's the easiest way to do it, but it will not scale. As you will get hundreds and thousands of users, every time somebody zooms and pan, you're making a new request, right? So then the server will become overloaded and it will not really work. So we need to find a shortcut for doing this. One way of doing it is caching, right? Caching can be used in multiple places. The basic idea of caching is that something the user is going to ask for again and again, I pre-calculate it and keep it, right? That's one basic layman's meaning of caching. So how do we apply it to web maps? Instead of calling for the entire map as one image, what if I call for predefined squares? And not only that, whatever is outside this, that also I call and keep in my memory. So now when I move this, only those new images to the side will get loaded. What makes it easier is that the server has to once pre-calculate and keep those images. But next time when a user calls for it, the server just sends it. Additionally, the benefit is that the application becomes faster for any end user, right? This is the basic concept of tiles. There are details to that, like how should my image look? What is the tiling structure? What is the pre-decided sizes? How do I know where to show the tile and so on, right? These are all questions one can have, and the way to get around this is you're not going to make calls to the server for the raw tiles. You use a mapping library, either something like Leaflet or Mapbox GL or Map Library or one of those, which will actually call the tile for you. You just said that this is my bounding box, this is the area of the map I want to look at, this is a zoom level, automatically does the calculation and brings it for you. The more detailed part is like right now the roads are in green, right? If I wanted them to be in blue, then what? If my server had calculated it as images, saved them as JPEGs, from green, I cannot turn them to blue, correct? So then I need to get the data in a different way and then color it on the client side in a different, in the whatever color I want. So that concept is called vector tiles. Again, there are a lot of details to it. We can go and talk about it for ages, but that's the sort of short and what do you say way of looking at it. I hope I've answered your question. Yeah. Anybody else has any questions? POI and? Okay, so POI stands for places of interest or place of interest. So any, not only in OSM, but in the GIS industry, we call roads would be a road network. Then there is something or each place that we put in, we call it a place of interest or a POI. There's another additional things according to organizations called APT points or address points or something like that. So it's more of a technical term, but basically any place is a POI. Not only a restaurant, it could be a building, it could be a natural feature, it could be a monument. All of these are technically called as POI because they're points, right? And POI editing, which I mentioned, was how do you edit and add new POIs or update existing ones? Yeah. Any?
I wanted to ask about like the usability of the project. Suppose it is about like a personal user will means the map that is edited that will only be available for the user, or all the audience would be able to see those modifications and to see.
So now in OSM, whenever you edit something, it becomes immediately visible to everybody else, right? So if I add a new road, update a road, it becomes visible on that map immediately. Now, next time when somebody downloads that data then and processes it in their routing engine, they will start using the new road. But it's not just limited to me. It's more of because it's crowdsourced. It's like Wikipedia. I edit something, immediately it becomes visible to everybody else.
So now like the following question becomes, suppose Wikipedia has like some sort of engine or some sort of like person, suppose they would be like constantly looking over the data whether it is correct or not, and then only like on suppose on question websites it's like modified by experts and all. So like what's the basis term, or what team would be then monitoring those modifications to actually use the right ones?
Okay, so there's no official team. Even on Wikipedia, there's no official team who looks at things. There are certain pages for say certain personalities which is locked because they don't want any random user to edit it, right? OSM also has the same concept. There is anybody and everybody can edit it, immediately becomes visible. But many people like me often also look at other people's edits. You can always see who is editing what. You can always see who has made edits to my area. There are certain tools which can show you what are the edits, what is the quality of edits. And against each person's user account, you can see on the entire history as well. So I can always see that, okay, is this person a good editor, a bad editor? There's also the facility where you can, every time you make an edit, it goes as something called a chain set, right? There's a facility that anybody can come and comment on that chain set and ask you questions on why did you edit this? Or what was the basis of this edit? Or what data did you use to edit? It often happens that some people like myself, I know my area very well. So I'll be looking at it with a hawk's eyesight that who is editing. And if somebody does something wrong, I'll go and ask them questions. Now, this is a whole community. So it's nobody has a like, this is not somebody's own personal database that they will say, no, nobody can edit in my. It is a community and with discussion, we go ahead. So sometimes what happens is some people will do vandalism. It comes, but it is caught very quickly, right? If somebody adds something wrong, people will find out sooner or later. And because it's open, people can reverse it. And not only that, sometimes people point out somewhere else, like to Mapbox, who's a user that, okay, this is wrong there. So they'll go and correct it in OSM and then it becomes correct for everybody. So that is the benefit of the community driven model where the edits are in open. Anybody is allowed to edit. If something is wrong, anybody can correct it. If I had something wrong on Google Maps, I can't go and edit it. I can only maybe suggest an edit, where it's up to them to accept or reject. So this is not that model. This model is completely crowdsourced, where everybody is equal. Everybody can go and edit and update things.
Ask a last
Yep.
question. So now the like basic term becomes, suppose even if like we are using user as a contributor, right, to the data set, but we have to put some restrictions or some security bandages we can say on them. Like suppose if it is a community driven model, obviously it is going to have some good sides and some bad sides as well. So like there can be a lot of mischiefs happening
So
around.
there can be mischief. I agree your point, but because what happens is every edit is connected to a user, right? And the whole thing about a community is you have some reputation. That if you are a bad user, people can not only mark that edit as wrong, they can revert it. And if a person is doing multiple bad edits, they can block their account, right? But invariably, as it happens, there will be some bad apples, there will be good. Majority of the point is that most people sort of, after a few edits, you start sort of putting a reputation on the line that this person edits this data well. So therefore, automatically, you want to become, what do you say, well known in the community. So it's the same thing as we do offline in our real world, right? People know who I am, so I don't like trouble my neighbors, right? Maybe online I can go and put some rubbish on Twitter, but generally I don't do that in real life because my reputation is on the line. Similar thing happens here. Maybe a few times people will vandalize something, but the community catches it, reverses it, and sort of puts the user on, puts a check on the user. And slowly over the years, basically the entire thing improves bit by bit. Yeah. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Suppose I want to build up one project for my college level and I extract the data from OSM map. Did I just edit some places for my application level only? I don't want to reflect that edits on the OSM map.
So one thing which I didn't mention is that OSM, the data is available under a certain license, which is sort of, it's called the ODVL license. But what it basically means is that if you make any edits to the data, you're supposed to share it back. That's the technical part of it. But if you're doing it a project, it's possible to do that. It's possible that because you're not going to share that data again. So you can do that. There are tools to do that as well, that you get data from OSM, you modify it, you change it and use it in some application. It's possible to do that.
Yes.
I have a question. Is it possible to use OSM data, also share data back with OSM, but retain some of it while complying with ODBL?
So that's more of a legal question. There are some different people have different interpretations of that. One of the things in the ODBL license is that it is a share alike. So if I'm sharing the data, then what is it that I'm sharing? So it's possible there is this concept again of co-mingling, that if I use OSM data and mingle it with something else, then whatever I've mingled in becomes a part of the ODBL, which I have to share. But if I don't mingle it, then I can keep it separate and keep it with me. So now the concept is what is co-mingling? How do I avoid that co-mingling? So it becomes more of a legal question rather than this. But many organizations say like Mapbox, that's what they do. They take some data from OSM, add some other data, and then they build their maps on top of it. So they are making and sharing edits back to OSM, but they're not sharing all the data which they hold internally to OSM as well. So it's possible. You just have to make sure that you're legally following all the things which are mentioned in the license.
Thank you.
So can you give us an idea about how Google Maps actually finds out the real-time traffic on the roads? Like, does it do with the help of satellites, or does it catch how many mobile phones are there? Or
Nothing to do with satellites. All of us have this. If you look at what it does, it's reporting our location every few seconds. And when you're on the road and driving, it sends it even faster. So when on that particular road, there are 10,000 cell phones going, it can very easily predict what is the speed. And I don't know how many of you read about this or not. One of the artists in Germany, what he did was he took a small cart and put some 3,000 phones on it and pulled them across the road walking. So suddenly in 1 hour on Google Maps, it was showing that as red and average speed as something like 2 kilometers per hour, right? So it's at the end of the day, a machine learning process, which is built on all the GPS pings, which our phones are giving back to Google. Because satellites can't give you real time information like that. That's good to see in like Enemy of the State and those kind of movies, but that's not how it works in real life.
thank you.
Anybody?
Hello. So actually, it's a bit different question. What was the thought of like making it a community project rather than the way Google works? So
Okay, so I don't know how many of you know the origin story of OSM or not, but there was this guy called Steve Coast in the UK, and he wanted maps of his local area for him for some purpose. And then he went and said, where can I find this data? And just like we have Survey of India in India, they have something called the Ordnance Survey, and they gave him a proposal of like thousands of pounds. And so he said, no, I don't want this. I don't want data to be tied down and used by certain organizations. I want it to be free. So that was a thought process behind it. And that's why he started this whole project, and people started putting in data slowly, individually. From the beginning, the plan was not to monetize the data or tie it down under some paid license or things like that. So from the beginning, that was the concept because of the problem which Steve Coast had. Any other questions?
So I have a question on those tools that you just mentioned about, like Graphhopper and Nominatim. So such tools, if we want to see how they use the OSM data or what's the logic they put, is there any way to know that?
You need to be a Java or a C++ developer because the code is freely available.
Okay.
It's available on their GitHubs. Download the code, go through that and understand it. Thankfully, many of these projects are open source, so you can actually look at all of that.
But any kind of documentation or guidelines?
So there are few basic algorithms which are there for routing, because at the end of the day, routing is something from mathematics called a graph problem. So there are basic problems from basic algorithms from mathematics which are there. There is some basic documentation about how you can implement that algorithm yourself. It's up to you whether you want to do it from scratch, or some of these routing engines do have like a half pager or one pager of the algorithm which they use. But the actual documentation is the code itself, which is black and white telling you what it does.
Thank you.
So you're talking about the caching and the tiles. So generally, see, caching, this is not done at a user level. It's done more by the service provider. So for example, if I'm building a mapping application which should be used by many users, then I will set up the caching on my server so that when a new user comes and requests something, that gets data from my cache and not from the raw database. So that will have to be implemented at the server side by the service provider, not by the end users. Yeah. Right.
I would on the user perspective.
So it's possible that you can do, but if you do caching at the user level, it's definitely possible. Like when I mentioned offline maps, that is also a type of caching where the cache is created on your device. But for most of the cases, we want the cache to be used again and again by multiple users. That's when it becomes powerful, right? If I create a cache for every different user, then the benefit is not so much. But if I have one cache for everybody, the benefit is much higher. Right? Think of it this way. I have one image which is accessed by hundreds of people, or if I have one image for every person, obviously benefits will be more when the same thing is used by multiple people. So therefore, that cache is a constant static thing which can be accessed by anybody. It does not have any personally identifiable information. It does not have, for example, where your house is. Like your house and office, those informations will be cached only at the user level. But the overall map of Pune, that will be cached for all users across the globe.
Thank you.
Yes, you can have, again, you have to decide how to build a cache when you design the application. That is a job of the developers and the solution architect who design the application, that what level of cache is required. You can go without any cache also. You have to see the pros and cons of doing that.
So last question from Swapnil. If you have further questions, we can talk later or offline. Okay.
Yeah. My question is about the cache only. We are using OSM and map
Okay.
for the routing,
Yes.
kind of. So it's a kind of a offline map only. So every time we have to download the data for let's say for Pune. So we have to download the database, download from the database. It may be I have downloaded it now, but after that I have made some changes. Okay, some edits I have made. That edits, after making that edits, you have to download it again, or it
So
automatically it will update.
No. So it depends on the application. Again, this particular application might be downloading every month or something like that.
Okay.
Right? Because the community is updating, say, Pune every day. So you don't want to create a cache every day. Maybe you are fine with the roads being 1 month old.
Okay.
So, but still it can't be 1 year old.
Yeah.
Right? Again, it has to be decided by the developer of that application how long that cache should last.
Okay.
So this is one of the important problems in computer science called cache invalidation. That when do you invalidate a cache? So that is again something which you have to decide based on your use case. When do I delete my cache and create a new one? Okay, last. So there's no one answer. There are people who are Java specialists who work on this. There are people who work on JavaScript and Python. There are people who know Rust and use this and develop these applications. So it depends. All of these tools are in different technologies. Sometimes you don't even need to know the technology to run the tool, right? Like for example, I run Windows and Excel on my system. I don't know what technology it has been in, but if I wanted to customize that, then I would need to know, right? So according to your use case, you will have to pick up certain tools and technologies to use it. But very often, if you just want to get started, you might not even require to write any code. All right, then. Thank you very much. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask me offline.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikhil. Officially, I'm Nikhil Sheth, but I also use my mom and dad's initials. So VJ is Indian names only. There's no video jockey over there. I've been in mapping for, I started with the mapping by asking where are the ward maps of Pune? I was searching online, then I came across some communities and I met people like Devdatta and all. And then on, I started doing mapping. Before that, I was mainly doing some programming like JavaScript, some web page designing, things like that. So I'll start off with, I just made a presentation, which is actually it's a document. I hope we can share this original like what link or something with the attendees later on, because it's loaded with a lot of hyperlinks. Basically, I want to do some hyperlink transfer to you guys. So we'll just go on. So Vishal, yeah, I'll take a lot of help from Vishal here. He'll be my assistant today. A lot of things to open up. So first off, let's just start off directly. You want data from OSM and you don't want the entire data. You just want, say, just the schools in Pune. So the best way to do that is Overpass Turbo. Yeah, go ahead, open it. Yeah, press wizard, the top button wizard. There's a button on top called wizard in the top. Yeah. Just type amenity equal school. AMENITY, amenity. AMENITY equal to, just equal to school. Yeah, no spaces, just yeah, school, and run and build query, the first green button. Yeah, actually we were somewhere in Italy, that's why it went, it didn't find any. If we went to somewhere in India, we'll find. But basically, this is a wizard which by taking a little bit input, it created a whole query for you, and then it queried the OpenStreetMap. And because we didn't specify other things, it queried for the bounding box, which is the map that you are currently seeing. So it just located, and actually it did locate, I think, 2 places. So if you, Vishal, if you just click on the map, yeah, just click on that. Yeah, so it was able to find some schools. Now, if you zoom out a bit, you'll get more places. And this is by default, I think somewhere in Rome, or I don't know, somewhere in. So But otherwise, in India and other places, we'll get more place. Okay, let's get back to the slide. So this is a very good place to just quickly grab data that you're looking for. I just want to find all the hospitals in Pune. I want to find all the roads in this area, all the train stations. This is that. You can find it here. Pro tip for all the engineers out there, press F12. Any website you visit, press F12, go to network tab, XHR, and then you click buttons. You'll start seeing API calls coming. You can take that, automate it, put it in your application, and take off from there. So, which tag to search for? It's very simple. Just Google for OSM space wiki space whatever you're looking for. So OSM space school, you'll get all the search results telling you exactly which tag to use, what combination, everything. Okay, next slide. Right. So now custom areas, extracting data. So OSM data already it's covered that we're already getting full India and other regions downloads from places like GeoFabric and others. There's some other websites below here where you can get places. And there's a very nice tool called OSUM, wherein you can feed in one GeoJSON file, which is a shape file, like any kind of area, and you can just extract just the area that you need from that bigger file. This is a very versatile tool. It goes for even disparate areas. So you can, for example, create a GeoJSON encircling just Pune and just Mumbai, and then run that, and then you'll get the OSM data for just Pune and Mumbai. So things like that. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so this is an extra thing. If you want to get data, and this is specifically for, like, I know that when we're looking for data, many times it's trapped inside some PDF or something. So this is something that we had figured out some months, like a year ago or something. Somebody in our community had figured out. So this is, and we made a very nice project out of that also. So nothing to click here. Just this is just a tip for that. OGR to OGR is a tool. Yeah. So now let's go on to the next part, which is leaflet maps. Just a second. Need some more. Yeah. So if you want to make an interactive map on your web page, by default, if you look for how do I put Google Maps, you'll get a Google Maps SDK library and all. So this is the open source alternative to that. There is one called Leaflet. There's actually many others. Chinmay or Devdatta, you can also contribute if anybody knows. There's Open Layers. There's now with the vector tiles, there's MapLibre, Mapbox GL. A lot of different libraries are there. Leaflet is what I kind of took and ran with. It was very simple for me to, simple for me to understand. But now, especially for the students who are coding and all, ChatGPT knows Leaflet very well. So you can just ask ChatGPT that, okay, make a leaflet map for me, which loads so and so shape and renders it in this way. ChatGPT will give you a nice, good code, copy paste, put it in your thing, and then develop from there. So then regarding maps, a lot of people confuse the background layer that we are seeing with the map information. So when we're talking about OpenStreetMap, as Devdatta said, we're talking about data, not really the background. The background styling can be anything. So you can have the same data, but you can have it rendered in different ways. So there's a very nice website, leafletextras, github.io, where you can there's several different flavors of OpenStreetMap. Like many different companies have taken the data and then made different tile layers of it. So this screenshot is by Stamin watercolor. It's a very creative way of making a map. This is like Pune, and it's like a very stylish way of putting. So you can put it on your website like that. Okay, yeah, next slide. Right. Now I'll show two examples, like two projects that I had worked on, which showcase this interlinkage between your map in the page with other page elements. So Vishal, can you just open the first link? Yeah. So anywhere on the map, right click and choose the option of load this block or something. Anywhere inside India. Right click, load this block. Right. So this is one open data set called PMGSY. They had released this habitations data set. They were all point locations. So my application, what it is doing is, it is sending a query to the backend, In the backend, it's making a reverse geocode lookup to PostgreSQL. Not geocode actually, it's like just point and polygon lookup. So it's sending the lat long to PostgreSQL. Then PostgreSQL is returning a boundary. Then within that boundary, whatever locations are there are being loaded here. And then the front end is getting those locations, and based on those lat longs, then my JavaScript is then rendering all those points on the map. So that way this is like, it's an interaction between the table and the map. The data first loads up in the table on the right side, and then after that it loads up in the map. And you can also browse to various places up and other things are there. Okay, yeah, back to the slide. Yeah, just go back to the previous slide. So there's a second also Delhi development plan. If you can load the website on the right side. Yeah, in under the about section. Yeah, that one. Yeah, just check on this on the left side base map. Above that. Base map only where minus sign is there. And just click it again. Yeah. So this is an example of a static website, HTML. It's hosted on GitHub entirely, so it has no backend stuff happening. What we did is just load up several different small GeoJSON files, and then there's JavaScript over here, which is then loading things one by one. You can also selectively load it by opening the options and scrolling down. So I made this as a example, as a POC for, you can say, a poor man's GIS system, wherein you don't have a big fancy server and geo server and all that stuff, but still you want to get things done. So that way, this code helps that happen. And we also have put this open source so anybody can use it. Okay, thanks. Back to this slide. Yeah, so those are all extracted layers from the Delhi draft development plan of 2041. So just from that, there was a PDF. There were these PDFs actually. So somebody just extracted from the PDFs these geospatial data layers, and then we just put them on the website. Yeah. Can you just go back to that website that we had opened? Yeah, the link just above that. Okay, fine. Yeah, so just open up the arrows. You can see these arrows on the left side. Yeah, so you can check on and check off different layers. So it's kind of mimicking what we see in this. There's this geo server kind of application that, like many government websites, you'll see this. Like even if you go to, I think, gis.punecorporation.org, you'll see something like that. But that stuff then has this whole big setup of server at the back end. In this it's a poor man's GIS. It's like you have some files, you just put this in the static site and you can make it run, and you can host it on a GitHub link. You don't have to pay anybody anything for that. So yeah. Okay, back to the slideshow. Right, yeah, next slide. So I put two links there because the second link is a GitHub code link, so you guys can check it out and copy it for yourself. Then raster data. So there is one thing that's vector data, which is your point, area, line. There's also raster data like an image type thing. So many times you'll have that and you want to show it on an interactive map. So there's one way I'd worked out, which is like a very quick way of doing it, that somehow get that raster. If it's a geotiff, if it's not, then georeference it, then get it onto QGIS, use a QTiles plugin. It will create a folder of it, like it'll tile it up. It'll convert that raster into small tiles, like what Devdatta had explained. And then that entire tile will be there with you in a folder. You take that folder, put it on your, can you just open the example? Yeah, so this is one project I had done with Center for Environment Education in Pune. Yeah, so just zoom in, zoom out. Yeah, and there is a transparency thing, yeah, on the side. Yeah, so you can vary it. So you can make it fade in, fade out and all. So this is again using a very simple Leaflet.js plugin, like library, and it is doing the job over here. Just on the top, do previous or next. Yeah, so I had various such geotiff images. So this one then cycles through all of them, and you're able to zoom in, zoom out and all. And so that way you're able to render even image type of data on top of your map. It doesn't have to be the background. It can be the foreground. It can be the thing that comes on top. So this is specifically for people who are dealing with raster images, geotiffs, especially things like NVDI data of soil health and this Google Earth engine from there, some data you might be getting, something like that. Okay, get back to the slideshow. No, next. Yeah, so tiles are not just for maps. Actually, the reason why tile technology came is because a map is essentially a very huge image, and a user can't load the entire huge image in the browser at the same time. So it breaks it up into tiles. So this is an application where can you just open the link first? Yeah, this is an app. So there's a way to take any large image you have and go ahead and zoom into somebody's nose over here. Yeah, and click on that. Okay, so I have the lat long of the nose over there, and I can share it with somebody, and we can do some kind of like art critiquing or something. Acha, usne ye painting ऐसे करना चाहिए था, वैसे whatever. So this kind of stuff, even if you have say a very large engineering drawing, like graphics or something, or you've taken a photo and you want to share it online, but if you compress it down, it turns into crap. Like it goes very bad. You want to share the entire nice photo in all its beauty. Lekin 20 MB size, 50 MB, 100 MB size. How can you put it on a browser? People's browsers will crash. So then you can use tiling technology to break your photo up into tiles and then put it online, publish it online, and people will be able to on your website nicely zoom in, zoom out, and see the entire thing. Okay, back. Yeah, so and the code for that is over there. Okay, next slide. Yeah. Now just a brief introduction to vector tiles. So vector tiles takes the same tiling technology that we had in images and brings it to vector data. Again, the same basic problem statement. You have say the some vector data of all the village boundaries of an entire state. It is totally say 300 megabytes in size. GeoJSON data है, vector है, फिर भी 300 MB कौन load करेगा यार? Browser में it will crash by the time you open it. So you can turn into vectors. Can you open the link, Visha? Yeah, so here actually thoda hodgepodge hai. I put in a lot of vector data. Can you just scroll to the bottom? I'll tell you where exactly. You'll see something called second time MH villages. Like नीचे जाके MH villages कुछ देखेगा. थोड़ा ऊपर गया शायद. Sorry, there's actually a lot of data I've been. Just do inspect. Yeah. So start zooming out. Yeah. So this is the same tiling technology applied to all the village boundaries of Maharashtra. And this tiling process, what it does is also does some optimization that when you see this completely zoomed out, if that tile was loading all of the data, it again would be a very heavy tile. So there is a tool called TypicNO created by Mapbox, which does this kind of optimization that at larger zooms, it leaves out some data. Like it optimizes things and it makes sure that the tile size loading in your browser is optimal. It is like say within 1 MB or something like that. And then if you zoom in more, then you will get more details. So that way, that technology you can use. And these same layers can be then imported to your leaflet.js map, any other map. So you can also render it over your other web maps. Okay, back to the slideshow. Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah, and the way I'm rendering this is using another Mapbox product called TileGL. And the code for how I did it is there here in this GitHub link. It's a recipe that I put wherein first I'm using TypicNO to convert a very large GeoJSON file or something into tiles. And then I'm using TileGL to render that tiled up data online. Okay, let's go to next slide. Okay, so little bit break.
Nikhil, yeah, perfect time for me to interject. 20 minutes in, and that's a lot of interesting information about tile technology. I was thinking maybe someone might have some questions. It'll give you the opportunity to take a sip of water. I see a lot of engineering students here, I'm sure. I've spoken to quite a few of them during events, and the main question they had was, okay, how can we contribute to OSM as engineers? So this is, I think, the kind of presentation.
Code, man, code it. Code something nice.
Questions?
Actually, tiles related many questions got asked in the Devdatta session itself.
Sir, do we have any project architecture available on their GitHub links?
What? Sorry again?
Architecture diagram or something is how you have developed.
Oh, I'm very bad at making those diagrams, so maybe not. Code to hai, but you can always ask me. Like my contact is there on the slide. Maybe I can explain sometime. It's a good idea actually to put diagrams. Maybe I'll work on it sometime.
Thank you, sir.
We'll be sharing all the slide decks. We have your email addresses. I think all of you registered, right? So yeah, we'll share them with you.
Okay, so okay, I'll get on to the next leg, which is putting stuff on.
Nikhil, there's one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have ample amount of time, so that's.
Yeah, no, I want to run through and just get out from here as soon as possible. Yeah.
My question is, how is TomTom related to OSM? Yes, I didn't get it.
That's a very good question for somebody who works with TomTom, which is not me. So we'll defer that to later. Yeah. So the next speaker is.
We'll answer that question later after the last session.
So the last session expert who will come here will be able to answer it nicely. Yeah. Okay, great.
Any other questions? I hope the information is seeping in.
Actually, it's a fire hose here. It'll be overload. Pata hai mujhe, but that's why we'll share the slideshow with you afterwards. You can go through all the links at ease. I just wanted to very quickly touch up many things here.
So shall we let Nikhil continue?
Okay. But thanks a lot for that break. I think it will calm me down a bit. Okay, so now supposing you want to you developed your thing, it looks very nice on your computer. You want to put it online. So online kaise dalne ka? So there's one very good way of doing it using GitHub, especially if you have just static data. By static, I don't mean that it's not interactive. It will be interactive. By static, it means that it does not need to go to a backend server and then do some processing there and come back to you. Rather, all your assets, whatever information you need is there in one folder. Like on a folder on your computer. So it'll be HTML files. Inside that JavaScript files will be there, CSS, images, your geospatial data, images, everything will be there inside the same folder. That is what we call static data, where all the data that is to be there is located inside files, not inside some database, not inside some backend that has to make an API call somewhere. So that is static data. So if you want to put that up online, one very good route is this: go to github.com. If you haven't made an account of yours yet, you can go ahead and make an account for free. Then create a new organization, not a repository, but an organization org. Inside that organization, create a repo with the same name as the org.github.io. Put that as a name of the repo. And then put all your files there. Make sure that there is an index.html at the top level, which will be picked up as the first file. Then go to the settings of the repo and turn on GitHub pages. It will now get published on your organization name.github.io. It will have a nice HTTPS, SSL protection, everything is there. It looks like a very nice professional site. You can take that and you can share it anywhere. It's easy to remember, also easy to share. So that way for your project, if you have done some work, you want to showcase it. So rather than having to show it on your laptop only everywhere, you can just put the link to that and send it across. Yeah. Then after that, traditional website hosting. I'm saying traditional because that's one default way. And then there's some other ways of doing things also that came later. So that is, there are many hosting websites in India. There might be better ones. I don't know them. I know Big Rock because I'm using it. And I had two options, GoDaddy and Big Rock. In them, Big Rock was the first one to start giving free SSL certificates. As in whatever website you make on that, it automatically makes it HTTPS. And nowadays that is very essential because just HTTP, the web browser itself gives warnings and all, and it makes your site look bad. Also, if you browse to HTTP website on a BSNL Wi-Fi connection, then BSNL, the Indian government start putting ads on on your website. So I had that experience many times. So then to avoid all that, HTTPS ke saath hi janega. So Big Rock is there. It's cheap enough free SSL milta hai. Yeah, if you're doing PHP and all, then this is very good. I mean, it can host PHP. Unfortunately, it can't host Java and Python and C++ programs. So for that, you have to go to the next slide. But here, if you have just static site, you have a big rock hosting, you can just get the FTP credentials once you onboard yourself there. Go to file, take a free software called FileZilla. It's a FTP software. Put in the credentials, and you can just start pushing all your files online. So Big Rock is also a very good solution for that. Okay, next slide. Next slide. More than just static, then there's a lot of other options. Now you will see something missing from this slide. You won't see Amazon Web Services, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. I've not mentioned that because they are there. They are very good, but they are so complicated that they give you a headache in the and you take 1 hour to figure out where to put your which service to use. Rather than that, this is much simpler and cheaper. There are other services. There's DigitalOcean, Hetzner, SSD nodes. I said in that order because I got to know about them in that order. So DigitalOcean has done a very good job of even documenting how to set up your own VM and all. Yeah, so what you do here basically is you get your own Ubuntu laptop or a CPU, which is on the cloud. So it's virtual and it is on the cloud. And whatever you would have deployed on your local machine with the local host URL, that exact same thing you can deploy on this machine, except that instead of local host, it will be on an IP address that is available globally. Or you can, after following some guides, you can even pin that IP address to a domain name and do domain mapping and all. So that way you can, it empowers you to put whatever project you have made on the web on a nice URL and host it online. And basically it gets you from your laptop to the cloud. And these services, in order of cheapness or expensiveness, DigitalOcean, very good performance, slightly more expensive, still affordable. Hetzner, cheaper than that, maybe by half. Like the basic Hetzner server comes for about 350 to 400 rupees per month. And yeah, both of them are payable through PayPal. And your PayPal account you can do through your debit card. You don't need a credit card. So you can pay every month for that. So if you guys are like 4 students doing a project, हर एक जन 100 रुपए कॉन्ट्री करता है per month के लिए. It is cheaper than going to a restaurant together, and you can have your own server on the cloud and you can host your entire project there online. So, and then SSD nodes is like awesome. Like I'm using that because SSD nodes is like high volume type thing. It's like wholesale. So if you book a server for not monthly basis, but rather for like entire 3 years, then you get very good cheap deals on that. So I've bought an SSD nodes 24 GB RAM server, like really high amount of memory for like hosting several applications and all. And that comes down to the same amount that it would have cost me DigitalOcean at a very like maybe 2 GB or 4 GB RAM. So for the price of 4 GB RAM, I'm getting 24 GB RAM. But that is because थोक का माल means वो wholesale में लिया है मैंने 3 साल का पूरा subscription ले लिया है इसलिए चल रहा है. So for colleges, I would suggest that the college buys accounts on SSD nodes and then gives memberships to their students and keeps recycling them. It is very cheap, very inexpensive, and your students will have like a place to host their applications online. Yeah, and some code snippets are there and some links are there to get you started. So once you get a server on the cloud, how to log into that, how to set up SSL, how to set up your databases, Apache server, all that stuff. Yeah. Okay, next slide. Yeah, and this is like a cheat sheet for getting started with routing. So whatever Devdatta had shared. So Valhalla software, installation not necessary. If you have Docker on your system, just run this command. You'll get full India ka one routing engine setup, and then you can start querying it, and you can take routes from Kashmir to Kanyakumari and stuff like that, and you will get full on-road data and everything, all running on your computer nicely or on your VM server if you want. So this is a like quick way to just get started with routing. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so now these are just places that you can go for getting to know more about OpenStreetMap as well as doing fun stuff. Can you just open up the last link? So this is one thing that's very good for entertainment as well as for events. We just put this link up, and while we are doing other talking and all, but it takes some time to load. It's like a live telecast of edits that are happening on OSM right now. So right now, all around the world, some people are adding a place here, putting something there, all that stuff. And somebody just added a road in Karnataka. Somebody's drawing something. So whatever, it's like a live telecast of things that are going on. So you can, it's very good for events. Just keep this stuff on and then do some other talking. Video mein acha dikhega and all. So yeah, okay. Back to the slide. Yeah, and then there's other things. If you want to do that routing and other services, openrouteservice.org is a pretty good free platform with limits, but it has a very generous limits. Like you can make thousands of API calls in a day. So even if you want to just use for a limited usage only, you want to do some routing or something as part of your project, or even isochrone maps or some kind of thing like that, ETA or something like that, you can use this service. It's pretty good. Places search and all also. Okay. Then TK, other things are there, Overpass, Turbo, Wiki. No need to open right now.
Can you quickly just show the community.openstreetmap.org?
Yeah, third one.
That's a good way for people to find a community they can join.
Yeah, so this is like the forum for OpenStreetMap, where you can post questions, Q&A, discussions and all. So we have more active groups like in Telegram and others, but this is a pretty good place for like some long format type of things where you have some proper doubt. You can shape it out nicely. You can get answers on that from the entire community around the world, not just in India. So yeah, this is also a good place to go. Okay, go back to the slide. Right. Okay, next. I'm pretty much getting finished. This is just a extra slide I added. This is my laptop. I opted out of Windows. I saved 10,000 rupees on the cost. So you can do that too. I encourage you guys to get rid of Windows, and don't get rid of Windows by first paying for it and then getting rid of it. Just buy a laptop that doesn't have Windows in the first place. You'll save a lot of money also that way. Yeah, and I recommend Linux Mint operating system as a replacement for Windows. It's very nice and user friendly. Okay, I think we're done. What is there another slide? Okay, thanks. Can you just go back to the first slide? Yeah, okay, thanks. Open for questions or break.
Engineering students in the house. I hear we have second, third, and fourth year students here.
Hello, sir. I have a question about slide you getting online, putting your website on the server.
Yeah.
Just I want to host the dynamic website, but I want to show how my project is made. But I don't want to pay for it. Is there an option I can show my project to person who is living another place? So
yeah, GitHub pedal.
Yeah, I have a dynamic website.
Dynamic website. Like with a database?
Yeah.
Okay, so actually database is one very nice Planet database, Planet or something like that, right? There's a nice service, but that's free now. But DETA, DETA. It's a service that is giving like if your code is in Python, then it is giving a way to host your application for free online, and they have a very generous free tier. Earlier than this, there was. I'm forgetting the names now. It's been so long. There are many services. Just search for it online. But yeah, and like limited offer. I have also a server. If somebody needs some help, I can always host your stuff on my server for some time. So we can do that also.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
It's most of like the Indian crowd or maybe any country's crowd won't be like a technical crowd. They would be interested in stuff like visual representations more, or not like this was technical stuff. Maybe we also didn't get most of it. So if a common person uses the site, so what would he do with like such geospatial information? So how can we improve or integrate this information so that it becomes both accessible and both like informative in many of any government projects that the country or state might be working on?
Like, I don't know what to specifically want. Like, actually, it's a very general thing. There are many websites where they have proper guides and explanations for everything. So OSM Wiki, for example, is very good in terms of explaining things in a very nice way of like how this is, iska kya hota hai, what exactly it does and all. And yeah, otherwise I don't have a definite answer for that because it's a very broad topic. If there's like one specific thing, then probably we can find some specific link online which does it. There's also a lot of blog posts that people have made, which give a proper guide or an explainer to something or the other. So I'll also plug in the website that Devdatta and Chinmay have made. There's GeoPune. Yeah, geopune.in. Yeah, so geopune.in is also like these guys have done a very good job on that. And there's also datameet.org. There's another website in India for open data in India with a lot of focus on mapping, map related stuff. So there's discussion groups online and things. Basically, if you're looking for something, you'll find it. But I don't know what to do for people who are not looking for something, and then I have to shove something, push something to them. वो मेरे को नहीं पता. Like I'll specialize more in like places where people are actually looking for something. They want to find something, and then we can maybe give something to them.
We have a few more minutes before break. So if anyone has any questions. So we can quiz you on raster tiles and vector tiles now.
No, no.
Nikhil, please proceed.
If you quiz them, they should have the slides in front of them so they can refer the answers. Yeah, we can take.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Nikhil. A round of applause for Nikhil and Devdatta. Really appreciate it. We can go ahead and take a break. Be back a few minutes before 4, and then we start our next session. Thanks. Chinmay, over to you. Give a big round of applause to Chinmay.
Hello. Okay, so I hope you had a good break. So for today's presentation, what I'm going to do is go a bit deeper into the actual data structure for OSM, because so far we've explored different types of applications that you'll have. How can you use OSM data, who uses OSM data, and some questions that came out about how you can contribute and how exactly things work. So some of those questions I will be answering, but then towards the end of this presentation would be the perfect place for us to have that discussion, right? And the reason why I'm going to go to the depths or the building blocks of OSM is because if you really want to develop anything as engineers, you need to understand what kind of data you're working with. If you don't understand the data, you're never going to build anything of value, right? The kuch to hoga, something will be there, something will be working, but ultimately it's just not going to provide any value at all, right? So today, as a title suggests, we're going to talk about the structure, the ecosystem, and then how everything comes together in a cycle. So what is the relevance of OSM? Why OSM? Right. So many discussions or many conversations that we generally have around mapping these days involves why do we even need something like this in the first place, right? Why do we need something like OpenStreetMap? You already have Google, you already had a lot of people who already have their own maps which are being used in the day-to-day world. Why would anyone even want to build an open database of locations around the world in the first place, right? Set aside the fact that it's free. That is a different discussion altogether, right? So the first thing is that it's a democratization of data. The main core or the ethos of OSM is that I know my surroundings better than anyone else, right? So how many of you here are actually from TomTom today? Right. So you know these premises, right? You know it better than anybody else who would come today. So if I'm coming, I need an escort, somebody to tell me, okay, this is where you need to go, this is where the washrooms are, this is where you can get coffee, this is where you need to speak, this is the mic that you, etc., etc. So there is a lot of information for anybody who comes here to understand before they can actually start making use of these surroundings, as opposed to someone who uses it day in and day out. So they already know everything about the place, correct? So you already can build a visual map of your surroundings just by being here day in and day out. As opposed to if I am trying to build a map, I still don't know complete information. Right. So now if I go out tomorrow and somebody asks me what is the layout of the TomTom office, who would be a better person to tell them what the TomTom office is actually laid out? Would it be a person? Okay, this is better. Okay, so would it be a person who actually uses these premises day in or day out, or would it be someone who has visited these premises once for 2 hours? It will be the person who has used it day in and day out, right? So that is data democratization. What it means is that the people who interact with any location know it better than anybody who doesn't. Right. So probably I could get some plans from somewhere. Probably I could get some images from somewhere that would give some idea of what it is like to navigate the premises of TomTom. But actually being there, interacting with it, using its facilities would give me or make me a better authority figure on trying to depict what it actually is to the entire world. Now extrapolate this to the entire world, say to Viman Nagar, to Kharadi, to Eastern Pune, to Western Pune, to all of Pune, to Maharashtra. So the people who interact with these localities, with these locations, have better authority to tell what these locations are about than anybody else, right? So case in point, if you take a larger organization like Google, if you take here Maps, Apple Maps, anyone, they do have their sources of data, right? So like Devdatta said, they're taking Google and all of these, Apple, for example, they'll take locations from your phones, try to make sense of it, overlay it on some satellite imagery probably or any other existing data, and then say, okay, this is probably what this area looks like. But more often than not, I don't know if you've realized it, that it's not actually the right representation of data, right? You know that you can take a right turn over here, right? But Google says you can't. Why? Because out of the 10,000 users that traversed across this road, only 2 actually turned right. Though they're saying probably, okay, you can't turn right here, right? But that's not the case, and you know better. So how can you influence that routing engine to then actually allow these right turns? Cannot. And this is why you need a democratized data system, which actually allows you to control everything, right from how the data is laid out,
how these individual elements interact with each other, and then consequently how the applications built upon this data behave based on what this data is telling them, right? So that is basically why OSM is relevant. So, let's just get down into the brass tacks. There are very specific things that build OSM. Right? The most atomic element in the OSM data structure is a node. Right? In simple ways, it's a point. Correct? So I'll give you an example. There are, just consider this room. If I want to visualize this room on a map, how would I do it? What are the basic things that I can point? Like, okay, these two projectors are here. These two screens are here. I as a speaker are here. The audience is here. These chairs are here. Correct? On a very basic level, I can say that all of these are points. You can, very easily visualize that, if you just draw points, these are all the chairs that are laid out. This is where the presenter was. These are where the projectors was. These are where the screens were. Correct? So these essentially can be considered as nodes. Right? If you go a bit deeper and if you say that, okay, the chair over there had a flat base upon which you can sit, then you can say there were 4 nodes and those 4 nodes were joined together by lines. Those points were joined together by lines. And that is what made an area which a person can sit on. So that the lines were the ways, the nodes and the ways interacted with each other to form an area. And that is how you would depict. But you still don't know what that area is, right? You don't know, just some lines and points. How would you know that it's a chair? Then you would say that, okay, this particular object is a chair. This chair is made of wood. The color of this chair is brown, right? So if you think of pure data terms, right, forget mapping, forget everything else. Essentially, all of these are objects. And these objects interact with each other or related to each other in specific ways, which are known as relations, right? So if you break down OSM into its building blocks, that's all there is. You've got points, or you've got basically nodes, you've got ways, you've got relations, and you've got tags which describe what these are, right? So you can make sense of it. So let's get a deeper into nodes, right? These are your fundamental building blocks, your atomic element in OSM. So you've got all kinds of nodes that will be there in the database. One is your standalone or standalone nodes which depict an object. Like I said, it's like, I'm a speaker, this is a chair, these are projectors. These are standalone nodes which don't really build into anything more. Then they will have unique identifiers about them, because the moment I say that there are 30 chairs in this room, I need an ability to identify each chair, right? So they will have their own unique identifier. Probably because there are certain people sitting on certain chairs, then you will have this history of who sat where, correct? So all of this information is there. And then you will have, like I mentioned with the chair example, nodes that come together and interact with other elements to form more complex objects. So let's go a bit deeper into what additional information and data that you would get in a node, right? So say you'll in the real world you'll have street lamps, you'll have post boxes, you will have traffic lights, and so on and so forth. So how a question over here. So what can you see on the screen? Okay. If you go a bit deeper and observe what else do you see on the screen, what would you say? Correct. So what is this version number? Why do you need a version number? Correct. So what that basically tells you is, if you see here is, I don't know, right? So this is a particular element that is highlighted. And what it's telling me is that it is a fire hydrant. So it's saying that emergency fire hydrant. What is shown over here is this node on a map, which is a fire hydrant. This fire hydrant has been added. So the third version of this fire hydrant. What that means is that information has been added onto this particular node over time. Maybe the location has been adjusted. Maybe some additional attributes have been adjusted. So that's what it's telling you. It also tells you the change set. So Devdatta touched upon it a bit, and I believe someone asked how you can track changes. So this is a change set. It tells you what was a particular change set in which this particular version of the node was added and what kind of information it contained. So it will have the color red. So this fire hydrant is now red. Its position is on the sidewalk. It is of a type of a pillar, right? So it's probably a pillar in which there is probably a pipe coming, which you fire authorities can plug into to get water. Right, and this, where is the source? How do you know that this particular fire hydrant in this particular fashion exists in the first place? It's because somebody took a survey. Now, this may not actually make a lot of sense to me, like what does survey 2023 means? But probably at least that is a point of discussions which you have with this particular user called Vincent underscore 95, whoever that is, to ask, okay, what does this particular survey mean? How did you know, or how did you get this information? Right? So can you now correlate the things that I told you to a real life object, right? So you've got a point in this ecosystem in the world, which is now, you know that it's a fire hydrant, but you need to convey to the rest of the world and anybody who is accessing this data that this is a fire hydrant. So then you tell them that this is a type of fire hydrant of type emergency. It has so and so characteristics. This is what it looks like, and this is where it's located, right? Now, this fire hydrant is not really connected to any other element, right? It's not connected to a road. It's not part of the road. I'm not going to use it if I'm driving a car around this road, nor is it part of anything else. It's just standalone object, correct? So that is one type of node. Similarly, you can use nodes to actually depict everything. So if you notice a few things, so if I'm drawing this building on OSM, or if I'm trying to depict a building on OSM, what you'll actually have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 nodes that come together, joined by ways to create a building, right? So this is what nodes are. So most often nodes, when they're not being used to create a larger or more complex object, are used to depict places. Right? They could be your addresses, they could be your shops, any kind of points of interest, or then other smaller elements like this, such as fire hydrants, your lamp posts, traffic lights, and in some cases even say your parking locations. If you want to park a cycle, where do you go, etc., etc. Now, if you want to depict an object, the best place, and you want to understand how to depict this object, is you go to the wiki and then you ask it, okay, I want to search for the name. Just search for what you want to add. Then it will tell you, okay, what can it be added at? Should it be added as a point? Should it be added as an area? Should it be added as just a way? And that's how you start depicting an object. The next is a way. Right? A way is probably the easiest of these to understand, is because if you want to go from point A to point B, you go via a line, right? That's the easiest thing that we generally learn. So 2 nodes that are connected via a line is called a way. It's how do you call it? A structuring way of organizing data in OSM. By definition, it's an ordered list of nodes that form a polyline, right? But a simple way. So now there are different kinds of ways. Again, like a node where we had a standalone node where you're an object that is just floating around somewhere that has its own unique characteristics and does not relate to any other object around it in its own way. There are different types of ways as well. There are some ways which are linear. What it means is that there is at least 2 points which are connected by a line. Right? There could be multiple points. So an example of this would be a roadway or a footpath. Right? A road goes from point A to point B. Right? Along the way, there are other roads that join it. There are other things such as zebra crossings or traffic signals or intersections, forks, n number of elements that come along it. But by primarily, it connects 2 points together. Sometimes roads are curved, which then you will depict by more nodes joined together by more weights to make it a more complex feature. So that is your linear way, and the other would be an area way. The area way would be the building example that I showed. So for example, over here, what you see here are these points at 1, 2, 3, 4. All of these are essentially nodes that are being joined together by lines, which is then creating a linear way. Apart from that, you can see these nodes which are joined together and they connect to each other, right? So where the way started is where it ends. So the node where which the way started is where the ways end, which create an area, right? So these are area ways and these are linear ways. So like I said, they form the main structure of OSM, where nodes are the main atomic element. The ways are the ways connect the nodes and then create a structure around each node. So each way also carries a rich information tag like I showed here before. Each way will also have stuff like this. So for example, if you've got a highway, then it's going to tell you that it's a highway. right? It will go say highway equal to primary, highway equal to secondary, etc., which will tell you what kind of road it is. And it will also have a similar structure. So every single element in OSM, whether it's a node, whether it's a way, whether it's a relation, and so on and so forth, will always have these main things. It will always be part of a change set. It will always have a user who has made certain edits. It will always have certain tags which depict what this particular thing does and how it relates to everything around it. Now, relations are very interesting stuff. So, for example, now we've got this particular room, right? What is this room inside? What is this room inside of? Okay, before a building, what is it inside of? Correct. So now this, you got a room inside a floor, then inside a building. Where is this building? This building is probably part of the building premises, which is part of, say, Viman Nagar, which is part of some ward in Pune, which is part of Pune city, which is part of. So all of these are essentially relations. There is, you've got things inside other things, inside other things, inside other things. But certain things are related to other things, right? So for example, this room is particularly related to this floor. But this room is not necessarily directly related to Pune. You won't say you want to go to this room in Pune. You'll say you want to go to this room on this floor in this building on Vimannagar in Pune, right? So all of these are interconnected relations. So that is how when different elements interact with each other, they are known as relations. Right, so again, each relation has a unique ID and it has certain characteristics which define whether it's inside of something or outside of something. So it allows you to encapsulate complexity, right? So the amount of complexity that I just explained is easily encapsulated by relations. I'll just show you how. Okay, so how many of you have been to Veta Tekdi in Pune? Great. So have you been to the quarry? Right. So now if you go to the quarry, you know that it's a very complex structure. So I'll give a brief introduction because many have not. So now Veta Tekdi is just a hill in Pune upon which there used to be a quarry once. Now this quarry has been unused for the past 20-25 years or more than that. And now it is a very rich ecosystem. It has got lakes in it. It has got a lot of biodiversity related stuff in it. It's now a hotspot for birds, correct? Now, if you just want to depict as a quarry, the simplest way that you can depict it in OSM is just adding a point and say that it's a quarry. Is it giving the right kind of information that is already available to us? No, because I just told you it's got lakes in it. It's now disused. It is now a biodiversity hotspot, right? And it's inside of Veta Tekdi, which is a large hill in the first place. So how would you depict this information in OSM? So this is how. So for example, the surrounding green things that you can see over here is the Veta Tekdi. And the reason why it's shown green is because the Veta Tekdi somebody has put a tag on the Veta Tekdi saying that this area is forested. Right? So they'll say that is natural equal to forest, which is why it says that now it's a forested area, which is why the map tiler, which generated this particular map, of which I took a screenshot, knows that this particular area is supposed to be depicted by a green thing with tree icons in it, which is a forest. Now this quarry is inside this hill, right? So now when I draw this particular polygon using my nodes and bays, I will have to first say that this is part of this hill. It's not floating on the hill, right? It's not just randomly in the middle of nowhere and it's, this hill is separate, quarry is separate. Quarry is part of the hill. So that is where, if you can see, now it says that weigh this as inner, weigh this as outer, correct? What it means is, if these highlighted sections, this particular lake is inside the quarry, right? So this particular way is inside this larger quarry. It's a lake inside the quarry. And if I'm saying that this particular way is outside, what it means is that it relates to the outer element which encapsulates this. Correct. So when you're interacting with OSM data to show anything, these relations actually tell you what you're looking at. So when you build your code upon this, you can then interact. You can then say, okay, I want to extract all of these particular lakes within Veta Tekdi, right? You could also do a spatial query to do it. But OSM by default provides a mechanism where you can actually go down into data and extract all of the inner elements within this particular query. right? A bit technical, but relations are a magical thing once you actually get down into it. Right? And it'll have tags just as everything else. Every relation will also have tags. So for example, over here, I'm saying that the land use for this particular thing is a quarry. It has a natural scrub. So while the rest of the area is a forest, if you go down into the quarry, it doesn't have forest in it. It has a scrub. What it means is got bush and small plants and grass in it, right? So that is also depicted over here, because then you will see a different iconography for the quarry as opposed to the other areas, right? Now the last thing is tags. So like you mentioned over here, all of these particular things are known as tags. You can see here it's called tags as well. So tags are essentially key value pairs, which tell you descriptive information about any given place, right? So say Senapati Bapat Mark, right? SB Road, I'm assuming everybody at least knows over here, right? So now SB Road, what all do you know about SB Road? And you know that the fact that it has a name, right? You know that this particular name is in English. So then you can specify that the name in English is called Senapati Bapat Marg in these particular characters. You can also specify the name in Marathi, right? Because you can have multilingual names that can be consumed. If you've noticed, say take the example of Google Maps again. If you notice, you can actually change the language of not only the way that the map is seen, but also the instructions that it gives you while you're navigating. How does it do that? It does that because every single database out there also stores this information in there, right? Because you need to an ability to understand for everyone who is using this map to understand what this map contains. You can't expect someone who doesn't understand English to go to this particular map and then try to translate every single bit and then try to use it, right? So then as a user of OSM, as someone who's contributing to OSM, as a developer, you can then start inserting this information, right? You can start saying that what are these multilingual names, but then where would you put them? Because you can't put it in a data structure in a random way. You can use tags. So there is nobody saying that you only have to use particular tags. You can use n number of tags to describe anything on this road, right? But the wiki generally and who's built by the community generally define certain things that you should put to describe certain things in a certain way. So there is some level of standardization. So generally, if you're using multilingual languages, you say name colon the language. So if I wanted to use this as Hindi, I would say name colon HI. If I wanted to add French, I could say name colon FR, and so on and so forth, which is generally I think the IATA convention that they use. Similarly, you can say that the surface of this road is asphalt, right? It's not a dirt road. It's not an unpaved road. It's not made of steel, made of asphalt. So all of these essentially give you a picture of what this road would look like. And that gives you sufficient context and information to then build your applications on. To give you an example, why this surface equal to asphalt is important. Can anybody give me an idea of why this particular piece of information would be important if you're building an application on top of this data? Okay, that is one thing. Anything else? Can you give me an example of how it would be easy to navigate? Okay, so basically because it's an alpha, say, because then it means that it's inside the city. Okay, that's one way. Yes. Correct. So then you can combine this piece of information with weather data to predict what the condition of this road would be, whether it's navigable or not, based on your points, right? Correct. So this, now imagine this is just all of the use cases that you are able to build by one tag, right? Just taking one tag, these are the kinds of use cases that you can build. So which is why richness of data is very important. And this is where tags come in. So apart from the surface, there is also you can add conditions, whether there are potholes or not. Whether certain vehicles are allowed or not, what are the speed limits by which you can go by, right? So all of this information can be contained by the use of tags, right? Now, the tags are also useful in one other situation, which is called a turn restriction. Can anybody give me an example of what you feel a turn restriction means? Don't give, it's okay. What do you understand by the term of turn restriction? Sorry, somebody said something. Correct. Correct. So why do you think turn restrictions are important? That is not generally considered within a turn restriction, but that is an information that you can add as a tag. So basically it tells you where you can go from and where you cannot go from. And where do turns come into the picture? When two roads intersect each other, right? If you're just going along a road, generally you're just going along the road, right? You're going in one direction. You're not changing directions. When do you possibly turn direction? Is when one road meets the other, and that particular junction is when you can figure out where to go left and where to go right. So this is where turn restrictions come into the picture, right? So basically what turn restrictions say is that where you're coming from and where you're going to and via what. So if you see here in this particular junction, I think this is on JM Road, is that because JM Road is a one way, if any road is joining over here, I won't be able to go right. I will only be able to go left, right? So that is depicted by a turn restriction via the from or the to at this particular intersection. So it says that if you're coming from this way and if you're joining this way at this particular junction, you can go left, right? So that this is the kind of information that you can contain within an intersection of any two ways within OSM. Okay. All right. So now the real world. Okay. So now you've got points, you've got so you've got nodes, you've got ways, you've got relations, administrative boundaries. So can we go around the room and can you give me an example of each? So nodes, quick fire. What are the real life examples of nodes that you would generally depict using OSM? I already gave you 3 when I spoke about nodes. Can anybody give me any more? What would you depict that as? You would depict that as a node. What else can you depict that as? So if you say that, okay, this particular place is Ferguson College, yes, that's correct. But can you depict it with more granularity? Is there anything more that you can add or you can say, okay, are there more features of this particular place? Okay, so those are tags, yes. Okay, so okay, here's a question. How many buildings are there in Ferguson College? At least 7 or 8, correct? I don't know, I've never studied. So each of those buildings have a specific function, correct? Now, if I just depict all of this as points, will it work? The answer is yes, but is there a better way? Obviously, yes. Correct. So I can have multiple nodes joined together by ways creating these particular buildings, right? And then each building, then I can put as a tag and say, okay, you know, they've got information. What is this particular department? Is this a department of geography, computer science, arts, philosophy, whatever, correct? In the in Ferguson College, do you have any how do you say, what are those little things, signboards, that any boards that say that this particular thing is this, any trees have particular labels saying that this was the importance of this? So those are the things that don't really occupy a larger form but are just one point in that particular full campus, right? So those can potentially be nodes, right? Each of those buildings will be contained in that campus. Correct. So then if I have to depict that the building is inside the campus, how would I do it? So is the building inside the campus? Okay. So if you're taking the campus into context, a building will have the relation inner. But if you take the building into context, the campus will have relation. Correct. You understood how relations work, right? So how did you start? You first started by putting a node and saying that this is Ferguson College. Then you realize I can add more information. Then you went to buildings. Then you gave each building a name based on what characteristic? The department. Then each of those departments will have a probably a name tag somewhere. So you added a node to depict that name tag, saying that the name tag is here, which depicts that this building is this. Correct? So this is the level of granular data. If you add into OSM, you will add a lot of value. Right. So if you recall the first presentation where we said that, you should add more information, you should add rich data. This is why, right? Because the more information you add, the better you are representing the world in real life. And the better you represent the world in real life, the better applications you will be able to build, right? So whether you are an engineer, whether you are a GIS person, whether you are a layman, adding data and adding tags is beneath no one. Everybody needs to contribute from the base level. It is only when you have got enough data will you be able to actually build rich applications that provide value. Okay. Okay, so I'll just give an overview of the ecosystem and how it works. Right? At the heart of OSM is the community. The people make OSM what it is, not just the data. Right? So the people could be anybody who is contributing as a group, as part of an organization, as part of a company, as part of an NGO, as part of anybody who is building applications on top of the data. Right? So all of these applications that were mentioned were built by someone, right? Someone came around and built these applications. So even if you're building these applications, you're still part of the community, right? And the community does a lot of things is that they build collaborative projects such as Hot OSM, I think, which is the next presentation where people came together to actually help other people, which is a collaborative effort. There are other organizations and mapathons which just focus on saying that, look, there's no data here, let's add this data so that we can do X and Y. Correct? So all of these collaborative projects are done by communities. There are certain lone wolves in the community which I've seen just build a city overnight. There are people who just build, just focus. Okay, look, my city is not there. Nothing is there. Let me add roads. So every day for 8 hours, 10 hours, they'll just sit and add roads. And suddenly where there was nothing, in a week, you'll see, a very rich data set of a particular area, right? So you've got these lone mappers as well. And there's also the global community. Now the global community has collaborated and founded something called as an OpenStreetMap Foundation. Right? Because it is such a large project that has been used by many different companies and so many different people around the world, somebody needs to decide the strategy and how people can collaborate together. So this is a thing called OpenStreetMap Foundation. The OpenStreetMap Foundation, the membership for this is available to everyone. If you are a very new person and you want to be a part of this, you do not have a lot of contributing history, then you can pay a fee and be a part of the foundation. The fee actually goes back into funding many of the initiatives that OSM has, right? So you may be wondering, where do these NGOs get the money from to build something like this? So this is one of the ways, right? The other way is that if you have been a mapper for a very long time, then you can just register on the form and then lets you be part of the OpenStreetMap Foundation. The benefit for a normal common mapper like you and I to be a part of this foundation is because then you can vote for the people who run this board. Right? The people who are in the board, you can actually vote for them and get these people to represent your views in the OSMF. Right? And there are other things like the data working group. So for example, someone spoke about vandalism. Somebody comes and puts vandalized data on there. So there is this group of mappers who work with validating data that goes in. So there is a report system within OSM where I'll give you a real life example now. I think sometime last year, somebody had added a very large bridle way in the middle of Pune. Does anybody know what a bridle way is? Do you know horses? So ideally in olden times, there used to be specific ways which used to be made for horses because they were the primary mode, like how like asphalt is meant for cars and vehicles, right? So then specific roads, because those paths had to be wide enough, they had to be smooth enough. You can't have big rocks in it. So these are bridle ways. Have you ever seen a bridle way in Pune? Now this individual had mapped a bridle way straight across Pune cantonment and said that, okay, this is a bridle way, right? So there were some efforts made by the community to say that, look, okay, don't do this, why do this? But then this person didn't pay heed. So then the community then reported to the data working group. The data working group blocked that user's account, make sure that it didn't do any edits, and then also reverted any changes that that user had made, reverting all of those particular data, all of the data that was affected to the previous state, right? So all of these are community efforts. No particular organization said that, okay, do this. The community came together and decided, let's do this to make sure that our data is safe and our users are safe, right? So this is how the OSM community essentially interacts with each other. Apart from this, you've got organizations and large companies also contributing towards OSM. You'd be very surprised. For example, Microsoft, you've got Facebook, you've got Apple. All of these are large organizations which contribute to OSM in one way or the other. For example, Microsoft has released a data set of all of the buildings in the world from whatever satellite imagery that they have. It may or may not be correct. It may be just an indicator, but they have made it available for the OpenStreetMap community to use. So saying that, look, you take this, see if that helps you mark all of the buildings in your area. Similarly, there are roads that are published by Facebook and so on and so forth. There's a lot of contributions that are being done. Facebook or Meta has built something called as OSM Cha. Now, OSM Cha is a tool that you can use to actually see what all change sets are happening in a particular area. So say for whatever reason you want to know all of the users, say who have been adding or contributing to OSM in Vimannagar. You can go to OSM Cha, you can put down your filters, you can define a geographic area, and then just save that filter. So every time you go to OSM Cha, you can see, okay, who's doing what in this particular area. So then if somebody has done something wrong over there or somebody has modified information that you had added, you can go and talk to that particular user saying that why have you done so and so? Because the information that you have added is incorrect. And you can have that discussion, have that data corrected. Okay? And you also get to know the mappers around you. So if you want to come together and have a mapathon. So I think last month, a few mappers in Delhi just got together, like 4 or 5 people, and they just decided to map all POIs in Chandni Chowk. Right. And how did they know each other? Because they're part of the community. They're part of the Telegram channels. They could see each other editing stuff on the map around them. So they knew their usernames, discussed, added value to the map. Right. Now, how do you create a cyclical impact? Is that one, organizations often are the best source of data, right? So the case in point being Google or any of these organizations like Uber or Ola or Swiggy or Zomato, what they have is rich location data, right? They'll have these drivers driving around everywhere. They will have the places that these particular people go to. So imagine the amount of GPS traces, the address information that organizations have. So if this data is made open, then this data can be added onto a common platform, which is OpenStreetMap, which then can be enriched by the users who are consuming it, right? For example, if you go back to the first example that I gave, I know where TomTom is, so I can tell everybody that TomTom is here. But the moment I place TomTom on a map, then somebody else who knows TomTom better than me can come around and start editing that data a bit more, adding more value to it, correct? So as an organization, I may not just add TomTom on the map. I may add every single IT company in Pune on the map because that's the data that I have. But I don't know anything more than that the fact that this is an IT company or this is a GIS company or this is a mapping company, software product, whatever. Anybody who is then using that data more and has more information about it, then can go and add information about it, right? So that's how it creates a cycle. So organizations have data in bulk, but often it's a shallow basin, as in they don't have in-depth data. The in-depth data is generally contained among the users in that particular area. So then they can enrich the data that these organizations had. At the end of it, what we get is a very useful ecosystem. Right? So yeah, How you can probably contribute to OSM is, if your interest is in developing tools and libraries, most of the tools and libraries that consume OSM because of the ODBL license are open source. So if you know a particular language, if you want to, you can actually contribute to these libraries itself and enrich them, or you can use them to build your own applications. Or you can then contribute to the data itself. You can be part of mapathons. You can be part of community mapping and go around and just start adding data wherever you go. Right? There are many applications that you can use that are available on your phone itself. So one of the things that I do is if I'm going by cab somewhere, often I get bored along the journey. So I just keep my app open, and whenever I'm stopped by a signal, I just look around me. If there's any particular shops, I just add them on OSM on the go. Right? That way, your data keeps on getting enriched, and you also get to observe the surroundings around you. Right? So these are different ways you can even passively keep contributing to OSM, and then also come together with your friends and create a project that uses OSM data. So yeah, you can also contribute GPS traces. I think that's something that I missed out on. So there are several applications which allow you to capture your path or your way. Can anybody tell me what GPS traces are? Do you know what a GPS is? There's basically at least a minimum of 3 satellites trying to triangulate your position on the ground, correct? So once you move, you're essentially you're trying to gauge your location time and time again. Your device stores these locations, and your device actually stores the path by which you went, right? And OSM provides a way where you can actually upload these GPS traces. Why are these GPS traces important is generally if you're trying to map anything on OSM, your first source of truth that you use is satellite imagery, correct? So then you'll use any kind of satellite imagery, but satellite imagery has one big drawback, which is an offset. Right? An offset is essentially if you're trying to place imagery on the ground at a particular location, the next set of imagery that you'll get may or may not match that place exactly. So if I use an imagery from today to map anything on OSM, somebody uses imagery from say 1 week later to map anything on OSM, there is always a slight chance that this imagery will not overlay exactly on top of each. So then your data may be slightly inaccurate. If you provide GPS traces, you can actually know where the particular place is. You know where this road is, and then you can use that as a base to understand where this offset has happened and make sure that any new data that is added, that offset is corrected. Also, if you want to add any more data, that can also be used using GPS traces. So yeah, that's at the end of my presentation. If you want to get in touch with me, I've included my contact details. This over here, basically me, Devdatta, and a few years, Nikhil also, we are part of this community called GeoPune, which is a mapping community in Pune, which is not necessarily restricted to OSM, but also contributes to OSM a lot. So if you want to be a part of this community, you can go to our website and express a interest to register, and then we'll let you in. Right. So yeah, that's me for the day. If you have any questions, you can open.
Thank you very much, Chinmay. Round of applause for Chinmay. Questions?
Hello, sir. I have this question from first day where I'm starting the mapping. There are many tags present for a polygons. Let's take example like a school. It's a school ground. Can I able to add my own tag for that polygon?
Add your own
tag for that polygon.
Anybody can add any tags that they want.
How I can do this?
Am I audible?
How I can do that?
So there are many different editors available. So if you want your own tags, the quickest way to add is as something called as an ID editor. Okay, so ID editor is an editor that is built by Mapbox. It's open. You can open it in a browser. You can create your OSM account. You can register on the OSM website. Just go to osm.org, create your account. If you click on edit at the top, the default editor that will open is the ID editor. Once you go to the place where you want to edit. If there's already a polygon there, which is for the school, you can select that polygon. Once you select it, you will be able to see the current tags. But there you can just say, okay, you want to add a new tag, and then you add whatever tag. The one thing of note over here, which I would say is whenever you want to add a new tag, first go to the OSM wiki and search for the tag. See how to add the tag, which the community suggests, and then add it. And then if that tag exists, there's nothing like it. If there is a particular piece of information where there's no tag that justifies what you want to add, you can always add your own tag. As long as your tag is a key and value pair, you can add any information that you want. But just first check the OSM wiki to see if there are any pre-existing conditions on how to add particular tags.
Thank you, sir.
Build a school or build. So how can we add that this plot is school or whatever college in OSM or and in Google Maps as well?
Google Maps you can only suggest. Google Maps you can only suggest. Google Maps you can't add it directly. In OSM, what you can do is you can go over there. If there's no building, you can actually draw. The reference for this you can take from any number of satellite images that are available for you. These editors generally provide sources such as Bing, Maxar, there's Esri, a lot of bunch of satellite images apart from custom satellite images that people have provided. It basically provides an interface for you. Let me just. So you can see this, right? So this is from the ID editor itself. So you can see this underlying base, which is the satellite imagery upon which you can see these shapes. So if you want to add a building here, say you can see there's a building over here, right? So you can just go to those draw tools and start drawing a building over here. Once it's drawn, you can start adding the tags and just push your change set. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So if you've got an empty plot upon which a building has been constructed, you can very easily do that.
Last question, but before that, let's remember to share ID editor tutorial with everyone. We have their email IDs. 2 questions back to back about editing, so maybe.
Hello, sir. I'm going to ask you a practical question. Like I was done mapping, I was added on OSM like my home, it's right side of one temple. I was added it successfully, but after 2 days I receive an email like it's a wrong location. So why? But it's correct now.
So you can reply to that saying that it's correct and this is why. So one of the main things to remember is that there is no authority on OSM.
Okay.
You just have people who are asking questions to other people. Right? There may be certain people who might say, okay, this particular thing doesn't exist here because I went there yesterday. You can always counter that and say, no, I stay here. This is a valid source of truth. If the location is slightly wrong, feel free to correct the location, but this place exists over here. So it's always an open discussion.
Okay. Actually, I was done 7 to 8 mapping example. But I just received one error only. That's why
you can always have these discussions. There's no harm in having these discussions because a lot of times what happens is people add duplicate data. So there's already a point over there and somebody comes and adds another point over there. Or maybe there's a building which already has this information. Somebody comes and adds a point on top of the building, which again has the same information. So when these kinds of discrepancies happen, that's when generally people raise an objection saying that, look, this already exists. Why have you done this?
Thank you, sir.
Thanks once again, Chinmay. So are we still awake, everyone? That was a very interesting discussion because we went from Devdatta's fundamentals to Nikhil's technical session back to more Devdatta related topics. So I really enjoyed that. Now over to Kiran for a session on hot OSM. Kiran.
Am I audible to everyone? Yes. So firstly, thanks to all of you for being here on a Saturday. So as it was also raining outside, so much appreciated your presence here.
I'll start with introducing myself. So I was brought up in Pune. I was born in some Marathwada district called Beed. So that's where I came back to Pune here, and my journey started from schooling, of course, itself. So I was, as you can see, I call myself as a young explorer and earth science enthusiast. That is because I was a geology student. I completed my post graduation in earth sciences, geology, if you all might know that. So that's how I was actually fond of earth and how the world navigates, or rather I started my journey with how the earth was born. And that's how my interest started more. I started gaining my interest more into the maps, because that's how you explore the world, right? That is the biggest source for you to travel around the world. And that's how I also started contributing towards different maps. So when I was not introduced to TomTom, by then I was using Google Maps. Of course, everyone does that. And if something is not going well there, I used to try and add some suggestions there. So you were not basically allowed to edit those maps, but you can definitely add suggestions there. But that used to take some time, of course. So I was finding out some ways where I can really go and add to the map, and that would reflect in quite a very less time, I would say. So that's how I think OSM is one of the maps in the world. I won't call again that is to be a map. That is definitely a database, of course, where you can store all the features that we have captured, right? We can store roads there, we can store polygons there. So this is how this all started, and that's my basic introduction. Actually, my onboarding to OSM has happened few days back or few months back, because I'm closely working with Syed now in TomTom as a community manager. So we both are handling APAC regions, that is Asia Pacific completely. And we would be also coordinating much more editing parties or much more knowledge sharing sessions with a purpose or with a goal in mind, that we also wants to develop OSM maps as a TomTomers, right? We are going to contribute, as you all are here today, to contribute towards OSM mapping, right? So we all, along with you and some TomTomers and some other speakers here, we are today a part of community, right? We call ourselves as an OSM community. So moving forward, so a random question to everyone. Do you all know what hot OSM is, or are you listening this for the first time? First time? Okay, super. That gives me a better clarity from where I should start. Okay, so very hot topic. Of course, it is spelled as hot. So what does it stands for? Can anyone read this out loud? Yes, Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. So what does humanitarian term means? What do you understand by that? Can anyone just explain? Well, a simple answer would also be fine. No answer? So okay, I'll put that in the simple terms. Are you all fine with Marathi, Hindi, right? So in Hindi we call it इंसानियत के खातिर, right? In Marathi we say it माणुसकीच्यासाठी, right? माणुसकीसाठी केलेलं काहीतरी काम. Okay, so this is how hot OSM is one of the part of OpenStreetMap community. Okay, so any recent news that you have heard about? Some natural disasters happening in India? Any examples? North floods, floods in North India? Yes. Anything from Maharashtra? Irshagar, very right, very right. So now what is happening is there are some natural calamities happening all over the India. And of course, we as techies, now we are more into the technology world. How are we going to help? We are not going to go towards north and directly help people. Of course, that's not practically possible. So we are going to help the community or help the people in the north or the municipalities in the north by giving them some data, by sitting here in your home, in your college, in your office, plotting some of the features on the map and giving them the exact features or exact areas where the natural calamities have occurred. Okay, so I'll move on to the next slide. So yes, what is HOT OSM? HOT is a global team dedicated to humanitarian actions and community development through open mapping. So you and me, can we both together, or can everyone edit to the OpenStreetMap community or the HOT maps? So the answer is yes. There are no such restrictions, no such barriers. There are different kinds of level in hot OSM projects as well, where you can learn and contribute towards it. We'll see that in the later slides as well. So the team worked together to provide map data, which revolutionizes disaster management, reduces risks, and contributes to the achievements of the sustainable development goals. Now, how this helps the society, okay? So the first impact, or the first thing where OpenStreetMap or Hot OSM helps to the community is with disasters and climate resilience, okay? So this is the first thing. Now, as I talked about floods in the North America, so there are quite a few regions outside India where Hot OSM communities are already contributing or already updating their maps. They are helping the affected people there. So these are different types of areas, we can say, where Hot OSM team does support and contribute towards the society, okay? Second is sustainable cities and communities. Now, what do we call by sustainable cities and communities? So if you can see on the image, you can see the city is well equipped with some solar panels, things, right? So this is one of the examples. So how do you make our sustainable cities, right? We can have e-bikes, right? Charging stations for the e-bikes. This is how you're contributing, or you can plot those features or those stations there, EV stations, and make the community more beneficial and more user friendly for everyone to understand. If I'm suppose a company owner who is like owning an e-bike company, right? And I want some stations in Pune which are like located, which can help my users or my customers to go and charge their vehicles or e-bikes there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot these features first so that my customers would go and charge there. But this is more a corporate thing. It's not buying and selling when it comes to Hot OSM, right? When it is Hot OSM, it's all about giving to the society, right? Helping to the society. Third thing is public health. Anything that you remember 2 years back, what happened in India, worldwide, COVID, right? So that was one of the serious causes that we faced. So how did government manage to help these many peoples? Quarantine centers, you all remember? These look like this, right? So setting up camps like this, rescue camps for the impacted peoples or anything that has been impact to the society. So these are the camps where we, as a community members, we need to plot this on the map, right? So these data, where do you get this data from? Hey, Kiran, can you just tell me from where did you get this data? Where in Pune are the quarantine centers? How am I going to tell people, right? So this is a collaboration activity between municipalities and of course the OpenStreetMap. So anybody like we three were sitting here could have been done. Like somebody is the owner of this action. So they reach to the community, they reach to the municipality, and they just go and say, hey, we have got this data. Can you just publish this on the map? So that's how we get the leads to generate it on the map. And that's how we are going to plot it. Yes, displacement and safe migration. So Irshagar, somebody said, so these many people have lost their houses, right? Now, where are they going to stay? So now what government will do is they are going to have some camps for them, right? The rehab camps kind of things, which are going to be temporary. So what is the source for that? Like, where are these going to be plotted? Where are people going to move around? So we need to provide some details with respect to that as well. So this is one more factor. And of course, the safe migrations. Minors and women are the major affected peoples in such kind of natural calamities, right? So special things are also made for this kind of disasters when happen. Yes, gender equality is one more aspect because I am on this dais today and speaking about OSM. That's one more thing you can definitely understand why women are valued in OpenStreetMap. It's not only about what I can say, gender equality with respect to adding data to the map, right? There's no biasness there. But when we talk about the impacted areas like women's safety, right? So there are other social features as well to this map, which are necessary for women. So sanitization facilities for women, their safety, their special bus rides that we have. So this kind of things can be mapped as one of the special impact of Hot OSM, right? So this is one more feature they have. So one question to you all. What inspires you to do some of the or to work for any of the social causes? I have one of my friend here, Vyanki, today. He loves going to pet adoption drive. So there is some of the other motivation drives for every one of us, right? So it can be something else for you as well, right? Can somebody tell me what is some kind of motivation for you, what, other than mapping or other than any social cause that you would like to be part of, or you have already done some social cause around you or in your college? Anything else? Nothing. You guys. Yes, anything. It can be anything. You might go to a tree plantation drive. You can do anything, right? So this is how that's my motivation actually to come to Hot OSM team. So now when I talked about floods in North India, so we know there are 5, 6 states that are heavily impacted, right? So how are we going to contribute? Firstly, that was my first question to you all. Would you all like to be part of Hot OSM? Because this is a purposeful work that has no benefit coming to you, right? The society, the impacted people are going to be benefited with your work. So if you're saying yes today to contribute to Hot OSM, I would just request you to open your laptops if possible, if you're willing to open and if you have batteries in your laptop, internet connected to it, and just type hotosm.org and you will be able to access the website. I just want to make sure it's easy for everyone, not that difficult. And I don't want you to do it only for the day, or it would be really good if you could open your laptops rather than mobiles, because that would give you a better interface of the website. Don't have it? Okay, that's okay. You are able to access it on mobile? Great. hotosm.org and just enter.
Kiran, can they search for this particular challenge on Hot OSM, or do they need a link?
Wait, I can share my screen for you all to refer.
So while you're opening that particular page, let me tell you that this project that Kiran is sharing on her screen, this was shared to us by the Hot OSM India group, I think, yesterday, and they said that this is the top priority project right now. So if you are able to contribute, and by contribute, I mean make meaningful edits, that would be great. I know that some of you have already joined us for mapping parties in the past. I see some familiar faces here.
Have you all landed on this page? Right? So this is the first interface of Hot OSM. This is how it looks. And if you look at the black button here, it says start mapping. Okay, so now first disclaimer or first warning. If you have not at all edited till now on OSM, I would suggest first you go and edit on OpenStreetMap first. Try to make some edits with respect to roads, add some polygons, like you said, schools, school buildings, school grounds. So try adding that first. And if you have already done some of the edits earlier on OpenStreetMap, then I think you are able to, I think you are eligible to work on all this, right? So I'll go and I'll click start mapping here. Everyone with me? Can you all see that? Everyone on the same page? Okay, now how do you go and quickly find the area that you want to go and work with? How do you find a project? Okay, so here you will see there's a search project window here. Can you see that? Yes. So now the other project that we had was Haryana state, right? So road mapping of flood affected areas in the tehsils of Munak, Tohana, and some more places. So what I will do is I'll just go and type here Haryana. This is my way of finding it in a quicker way. Yes, can you see that? I just type Haryana here and it gives me the same project. Can you see that? I'll click on it. Now, very important thing to give your attention on the details like description here. You will have to go through the description thoroughly. Try to understand it. If it is difficult to understand for you all in English, feel free to translate in your local languages. That should never be a barrier for you all. So this is how you're going to read all the details here. If you scroll down, you can see here who can map. Who can map and who can validate. Validate is something doing a quality check of the edits that you have done, right? So here you can see who can map. It says all users. So if now this project is quite easy, it is not that difficult. But if at all it was a difficult project, it should have given some other type there, like not all user, but some expert level users can edit on this project. So you will always have to check if it is open for all users, like beginners, expertise, and everyone. This is all you can do it. If it says all user, you can directly go and click contribute button here. Can you see this? Click contribute and you would land up on the tasking manager. Yes. Very interesting thing here you can see is you will always get instructions bar there. So whatever instructions are needed to work on this task are already written here. Can you see this? If I could zoom it. It says mark the roads using tags as per this hyperlink. If you are unclear about the types of road tags, it is highway is equal to unclassified. So some of the sessions that Chinmay covered, you all might know that how do you use tags, right? And what source do you have to use it? It's your Bing imagery and Maxer imagery, right? So in the imagery layers, you will get all these two layers. And while you're completing the task, you will also have to add the change set comment. So this comment is something you'll have to copy paste, or many a times it is already present by the on the space there by default. So you don't have to actually go and manually paste it. Okay, now I'll go and directly I'll pick a task and I'll click the button map a task here. So if you are a first time, if you're using Hot OSM, I would suggest start a walkthrough. Just have a quick video of how you're going to edit it. Okay. Now I'm not supposed to do that, so I'll directly go and click edit now. Now this pink polygon is my area of edit. This is some polygon in state of Haryana, right? So what I'm supposed to do here is I would go and add the roads here, right? As per the instructions given here. So even on this page, you are able to access to the instructions. It's not that you will have to go back to the first page. It is all readily available here. So it says now you will have to mark this road using the tags. Okay, now you are going to add the tags here in simple language. Okay, everyone with me? So now when you would be done with the editing here, you would be allowed to save your edits. You will get your edit counts here. Okay, and when you will be done with your entire polygon, you can also split this polygon if it is very huge and you're not able to do it in given time. So you can also split that and then you can save your edits. Okay, when you will be done with saving your edits, you will have to leave a comment here with what sources have you used and what is the edit that you have done. Okay, it is of course somebody said you got a question or somebody declined your edit, right? That happens when you don't give correct information. So we have a button there which says sources, right? So when you say you are updating a feature with respect to the local source, then it is quite a less possibility that someone would ask you a question for that, right? Just because you're staying in that vicinity, you have added that place, so you have your local knowledge there, right? So that is something you can add as a benefit for you so that no one can question back, how did you add this? So now in this case, you can add with what sources, like here, Maxer and Bing imagery we are using. We are going to say that we have updated the map as per the instructions and you can submit the task. Can you see submit button here? And also split task. You can split that task. That is also available here. And this is how you will have to Contribute. Yes, sir.
Where do we add the hashtag that you had shown previously?
Yes, when I'll do some edits now, only then I will be able to show you that. It will open a window. It will be same like map relay challenge. So you will have to complete your task. I fixed it, and then it will give you the comment section there. Will you all be able to contribute on this project? Can I ask for one Sunday? Because this project is really, it really needs us, I would say, because people are impacted. Our Northern India is impacted, and some contribution from us would really help the community there, right? So spend some time today after you go back home, your hostels. Tomorrow, spend some time and let's contribute towards some good cause, right? And if you get any questions with respect to this project or anything you're facing challenge with, feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn. Kiran Ahire, you can search and you will be able to see me right now, okay? Any questions related to hot OSM? Yes.
Yeah, there is something called as who can validate. So this validation is done by someone from the community.
That's right.
Okay. And
So somebody who's holding a better level of expertise or somebody who has got that level of knowledge on OpenStreetMap, they are the ones who validate the task.
and they say that there is something called as intermediate or advanced level. So that level is decided by like our contribution towards this community or?
Yes, yes, that's right. When you click on your profile on OpenStreetMap, you would get where your level is, right? The number of edits that you have done. You also become a star contributor. So that are the levels you will definitely achieve when you reach that number of edits. And that information you will get on your profile definitely.
So it isn't someone from the TomTom or something. It is from the community itself.
No, no, no. It's the OpenStreetMap community. This community is across India. And coming to the next question, that how is TomTom contributing, or what is the role of TomTom here in OpenStreetMap? So why are we, Chinmay, Dev, Nikhil, me, every one of you, why are we here today, right? We are improving, we are becoming part of community, right? You are also now a part of OpenStreetMap community. So when you will be going to different places, your hometowns, you be part of community there as well. So I cannot say that only TomTom or only we three are going to be part of the community. Every one of us is part of community, and you can freely edit on the challenges that are readily available on MapRulay, right? I think you everybody must have accessed few of the challenges. So keep contributing. We are here, we TomTomers and we some other everyone here. We are here to improve OSM map, right? We hold the same goal, we can say. So that's how even TomTom would contribute towards OSM map. So we are here to collaborate, and the number of community members, we are going to like widen up the number, right? So this is how we are here. Would you like to add here, Syed, something?
I think you summed it up. Chinmay mentioned a few organizations, and yeah, the way TomTom's been contributing to OSM is through the mapping parties we've had in the past. And that's just one way to do it. And it doesn't exactly have to do with how TomTom employs OSM data, which we don't currently. The fact that we are trying to get people to work on hot OSM means that we just want to see this OSM community grow and the OSM database improve. That said, don't just jump into hot OSM if you have never worked on OSM. As Chinmay mentioned rightly during his session, OSM Wiki is one place. In fact, even this hot OSM project mentions you reading up on what you need to add in this project. Learn further. Google Learn OSM. Sorry, I said Google. Search for Learn OSM. You'll find a very, very detailed beginner's tutorial. Only jump into hot OSM projects when you are comfortable. Enthusiasm is good, but it's also important that your quality of edit is up there. All right, that's about it from my side, Kiran. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can I just reshare once again for a while, Vishal? 521. Yes, just one important thing I wanted to show you all. I hope this is visible. Yes. Always keep a watch on this box here. What does it say? Urgent. So this project is really urgent. So please make sure you work on more OSM project. I would request gain more expertise on OSM, read OSM wiki, learn how features are, how we are going to add those relations, how we are going to add those, and then feel free to add and contribute towards hot OSM, right? Thank you so much for being here and everything. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Okay, so I think we have almost come to the end now. So all the important sessions have been completed, but we have some important topic to sum up this engagement discussion as well. So we have one topic that's about the student engagement. So what about the learnings and how we can apply this? Any thought? I think Kiran already mentioned something about the mapping and then to support the mapping activities, which are very important for all of us to contribute to the community. But there is one another topic where you all can maybe think about some innovative things as well. So we have one topic for you. So if you can just go to the next slide. Okay, so this is to support Pune Clean City project. So that's one thing we just wanted to give you a one small assignment. And we wanted to hear you back, like, is it something a good project for all of you to contribute in this or not? Okay, so we'll cover this topic. Okay, so this is again about the improperly discard trash, right? I'm sure everybody is seeing everywhere the trash and everybody garbage is every there is like, you know, maybe there only. So, but there is nothing, something a kind of a solution as of now available with us. So we know like government is doing some activities around collection of garbage every day, every time, but still that's not getting solved. So something to think about, like how you students can contribute to this Pune Clean City project. So we have one activity for all of you. So if you can develop an application, an app using OpenStreetMap and to share the locations of illegal garbage dumping sites. Make sense? So OpenStreetMap, the location, and then think out of the box how you can create an app. Got it? Okay, so let's move. Okay, so what we have as a requirement. So I have added a small things over here also. So an application as an app we want. And then, of course, based on OSM. And then the other part is we really want to raise an alert to the municipality or the people who are collecting our garbage. Okay. And then I have also added maybe a picture click in your app, a text to add in that app, and then maybe something as an alert to the authority. So these are the small requirements that have been added here. And then again, like authority address, the municipality, or city based to select or to be available based on the location. Again, the OSM map, right? And linking to the municipality team or the different authorities also, right? And then, of course, based on the user report, if suppose I'm reaching out or I'm using your app, then of course I should have an option to see how many things I have reported and how many things have already been resolved. So that report also should be part of my app, right? So these are the small things we have added here, but of course it's up to you. Your innovation, your idea could also add more value. So that's up to you to decide what additional features you can add in this app. Interesting? So, okay. So we have a one proposal also. Maybe the phase one is, of course, developing the app. Second is share the app with the community. We really want you go for a testing. maybe with a close group. And then of course to check like how you can expand that testing with the other people. And once that soft launch with the extended community will be over, then definitely we can do a kind of a general availability of your app to the wider audience. Okay. And the next is, of course, raise an alert to the authority. That's again about authorities who are going to help us on this garbage collection. So these are the small things you all have to take care while working on this experiment. There is one more slide. So we have added some useful resources for all of you. Okay. So if we just check the useful resources, so that's something on the UMap. These small links we have added for all of you to consult, to take a reference of UMap and then link to the guide also. Of course, QGIS is definitely you are going to use it. And then maybe there is a Safe City web app also available. You can refer that as well. So maybe these resources could be helpful for you to check like how you can build that. And of course, like I think based on the session, where you also check like how you can download the data from OSM, right? So I'm sure that learning you can also apply. Interesting? Okay, so let's move to the next slide. How TomTom can help you. So we'll allow you to be in the office. You can use our collaborative space for 3 months. So that means the timeline is 3 months for this app. Okay. And then, of course, mentoring. We can arrange a mentor for you. We have a good mentors already available with us. They can help you. Yeah. So they are already giving a volunteer also. So you can reach out to them for any type of problem statement. If you want to find out a solution, they can guide you. And definitely there will be an exciting prize as well. I think, yes, mentor, of course, will be will come to the office. Whenever they are coming, then definitely mentor can also join. Right. And of course, and then we also thought like maybe 2 to 3 people can join as a group. It's not like maybe one big group to work, because we really want to be a competition. Mini hackathon for these 2 groups, Catalyst and I Square IT. Good. Can we go for that? Okay, so 3 months, that means October could be a good time to complete this assignment. And August, July, August, September, October. So 3 months, and then 3 months to conclude this assignment then. Okay, I think I'm sure like the requirements are clear to all of you. We can definitely talk about the detail out if you really have any question further. But of course, like the point is like you really have to think out of the box. The requirements are clear. We really want to help our community, and we really want to check how we can support the Clean Pune City program. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I think this assignment could definitely help you to learn whatever you have learned today during the sessions, and then you can apply the learnings also. Okay, then thank you so much. I'm sure you all had a good time, and thank you for the presenters. Thank you so much for the time and the valuable inputs. We have a small gift for our presenters also. Maybe we'll just arrange that. some goodies for our students also, but only for those students who actually were like very participative, not for all. है ना? ठीक है ना? ऐसे ही करना चाहिए ना? Only the students who actually were very active, were very participative and asking a lot of questions. और जो अपना नाम देने वाले हैं अपने मिनी हैकाथन में. ठीक है? I'm just kidding. No, no. Actually, we are just going to check, like maybe we'll arrange a mapping party once again, and then of course definitely we'll be ready with some more goodies also. But आज के लिए we have not planned any such type of goodies. Okay. And thank you so much for your time. Have a nice evening.